We've got to look backwards and look forwards to figure out where we need to be spending our vital resources, our scarce resources in 2026. Because like you, I'm sure we're kind of frustrated with losing. We want to start winning in Illinois. So that's what this special episode is all about. In this episode of the Smoke-Filled Room, we're going to go into the candidate performance from 2024. Who overperformed, who underperformed, which districts look really good for us, maybe bad for us. Then in part 2, we're going to talk about turnout. High-level turnout. I and my political team have a bunch of takeaways from the turnout that haven't been talked about yet from the 2024 election. Then in part 3 of this video, we're going to dive into what it all means. Which districts we should be starting, which ones we should bench, which ones we should cut. We're going to have a little fun with it, a little bit of a sports angle to it, but identifying where our resources should go in 2026. To understand what data we used to make these determinations, we looked at a baseline that was created by races going back all the way back to 2016, all throughout the state. We created an equation that was fair, that every inch of the state was covered by the exact same equation on how did Republicans perform, of course weighted more towards recent elections, but giving it that balance so we could have a trend over 8 to 10 years to see how Republicans are performing in certain areas of the state. We, of course, look at their final election results if there was a candidate in that district in 2024. We compare how they did to Trump. That's a big number we want to look at. And we look at the overall trend over the course of those 4 election cycles. Is it going towards us? Is it going against us? Maybe they're in off years or even years it's better or worse for us. And here's the really cool thing. Our data team used GIS mapping software so that we could look at the current districts but see results going back as far as 2016, even though we're using 2020 and forward maps. So thanks to Abe Levy, our data wizard who made this possible, we've got hundreds of hours put into this between Abe and our data team, me, Michael, Chris, and our political team, our operations team led by Ryan Kilduff, our SFR team led by our producer Lane Davis and my wonderful wife Abbey Corbett. We have put so much time into preparing for this video, so please watch it, review it. There's so much helpful information here. I'll leave you with just one caveat, which is the data drives everything we talk about. As much as I wanted to insert my opinion, Chris and Michael, you know they wanted to insert their opinions. Everything's driven by the data. So there's some districts, some candidates that we love, that we wanted to give a higher score or a better performance to, but we are staying true to the data when we present this to you. So what you're going to get is objective views on where Republicans have done well and where we've done poorly. So let's dive right into it. I'm going to have Chris and Michael join me. I'm going to head over to the Lincoln desk. Because it's the Lincoln desk, I don't get to smoke during this episode, so I'll pour some whiskey, make the Irish side of me pretty happy. And let's see if we can get through this and learn some stuff together. Welcome to this extra special edition of the Smoke-Filled Room. So in this segment, we're going to look at how candidates performed in 2024. We've got to look backward to see where candidates succeeded, where they overperformed, and maybe where they underperformed a little bit. To do this, of course, I've got to have my political experts here. We've got Michael, we've got Chris. What's going on, guys?
What's going on?
You ready to make some friends and lots of enemies?
I have way more enemies than I know what to do with. Could always use more, though.
All right, well, to balance us out and to hopefully make people not hate us too much, we have my lovely wife who's going to play Vanna White yet again. Abby, wave. Look, she got to do the supermodel wave. There we go. So she's going to be putting stuff up on the board as we go, and it's really hard to be angry. I mean, look how pretty. It's really hard to be angry at her. So when we're putting grades up on the board, I mean, it's going to be Abby doing it. So how can they be angry at how? So we're fine. We're good. All right. So we're going to go through this Congress, then state Senate, then state rep. As a reminder, I know we've already said this, but just one more reminder. This is all driven by data. This is how did candidates perform compared to the baseline? How did they perform compared to Trump? And then ranked only based on that. We're going to argue sometimes because sometimes we're going to disagree with the data. But these rankings are driven and these grades are driven by the data. So love it or hate it, facts are the facts. We're going to talk about it. So let's start going through the congressional races. And with each of these, we're just going to focus on the ones that are closer to the middle here, like 10 points up, 10 points down. If there's a D30 district, why are we talking about it? If there's an R40 district, why are we talking about it? So for Congress, for instance, that's 7 of these races. Anything that was within the realm of maybe being competitive, those are the ones we're going to be looking at. So let's start with Congress. There were 7 races we looked at. So the first one we'll look at, we'll start at the bottom. First one we're going to look at is who got 7th out of 7, and that was IL 13, Joshua Lloyd. Michael, I know this is down towards your region. I don't want you to put you on the spot, but Joshua didn't raise a lot of money. There wasn't a big campaign there, and Budzinski's really well liked in the district, unfortunately. I don't know that I'm really surprised about this. What about you?
No, I mean, there wasn't a lot of money raised, spent on that race. There was an investment, from outside sources, and there wasn't really, an active ground game, door knocking, sign distribution, things of that nature. So when you're not doing those things,
But if you look at the data, Lloyd underperformed Trump by almost 6 points. That was the second worst of any of these candidates in play. So that comes into it too. A lot of candidates like to say, well, Trump did X. If you're 6 points trailing Trump in your own district, that's not a good sign.
And Budzinski's like a pretty decent incumbent in terms of Democratic standards. She represents the area fairly well, and the district has trended to the left over the years because you're dealing with places like Champaign, you're dealing with, the most Democratic parts of the Metro East. So this isn't the old 13th congressional district anymore. So you're going to run into some problems in many of the major, not metropolitan, but major population centers of this district. Trump does perform decently well here compared to where he used to. It's just that, when you don't have that level of investment from the National Party and you're running against a decent incumbent in Nikki Budzinski, you're going to run into these types of problems.
Be real, you don't put much of a campaign together. That's just to be fair. Yeah. As much as I've met Joshua, likable enough fella, but the facts are the facts. Here's one thing I want to make clear though, and Chris brought this up. These numbers we're using and these ranks we're using, it isn't based on the final total. It's based on how you performed compared to how you should have performed. So it isn't just that he lost by 16 points. It's that actually, if you look at the numbers, he definitely should have done much better. That's the point here. So it isn't about the final number per se. It's compared to what you should have done, how did you perform? And that's why with this first one, we're starting, unfortunately, with an F grade. All right, next one. Who got 6th out of the 7? Let's bring it up here. We're going to IL 8, Mark Rice in the 8th Congressional District. Chris, your thoughts?
Another one, this is one where I can't necessarily say, this is all Mark Rice's fault. Could he have run a better campaign? Yes. But he was going up against the Raja Krishnamurti, millions of dollars he's got in the bank. He's using those millions now to run for U.S. Senate. But again, not a strong ground game. Not a lot. There was no TV spending, and Raja loves his TV spending. And this is an area where Trump overperformed his previous numbers by a lot. This is a very
actually did weirdly well in this district.
Right. This is a very ethnically diverse district. A lot of Asian Americans, Hispanic Americans, the part of DuPage County that actually trends to the right is in this district. So it was a kind of a perfect storm where Trump does very well, but among those ethnic groups that are in the district, more likely to support a down ballot Democrat like Raja Krishnamurti.
But isn't that kind of why we're talking about getting 6th out of 7th here? Because Rice underperformed Trump by the worst of any of these 7 candidates. By over 7 points, he underperformed Trump. That's the problem. If you can't catch on to the coattails of the guy at the top of the ticket, that's a problem, and that puts you down in this 6th out of 7 category.
Well, that's what I think, and this one and also the 13th. There are pockets within those districts where there are voters that, we would probably call Trump voters. They're not necessarily Republicans. They're voting for Trump, but then down ballot, they're voting for Democrats or they're leaving it blank. So that's a problem, but it's also an opportunity in these 2 races specifically.
Yeah, well, and I think, it's no surprise we're talking about an F here. Abby put it up on the board. I think the challenge here is, especially in this race, you're going around telling everybody, hey, I've got a poll, I'm in the lead, nobody believed it, and now we're looking at, how badly the candidate performed. I know we're going to talk about IL 8 shortly. This is a district that actually might sneakily be in play. We're going to need a much better performance in 2026. All right, who got 5th out of the 7 candidates? This one is initially maybe a bit of a surprise, and then when you think about it, not all that surprising. We're talking Joe McGraw in IL 17, according to the data, is 5th in performance out of these 7 candidates. Who wants to take this one?
another district where, Trump does pretty decently in the district. It is the best Trump district in the state, if I'm not mistaken. And this is a district that even the National Republican Party, who doesn't look at Illinois a lot for a lot of reasons these days, even they take glances at IL-17 because it does have the makings of a truly competitive district to flip. Joe McGraw, there was some promise around the early stages of his campaign. Then he did some things that were very, very questionable in his advertising. Not a strong ground game, by my understanding. You need strong ground games to win elections, people. So that's what we're seeing here. Again, it's a blue-collar district, so down-ballot Republicans are going to have problems in districts like this. But there's no reason why we can't be doing better in districts where even the National Party thinks there could be a chance. And now that we're losing by this much, it's starting to make them look the other way.
That's the problem, right? I mean, we'll talk about that in part 3 of this video about, as the National Party looks at IL-17, they see Joe McGraw losing by 9 points, and they're like, well, forget it. We're not going to play in IL-17. But Trump only lost it by 4. I mean, McGraw underperformed Trump by 4.5 points, and this was the Republicans' second worst performance in a congressional race of any of these candidates. There's a reason why, yet again, we're talking about another F. And it hurts us down the line. I mean, as we talk about 2026, we've got candidates who are looking at IL-17 potentially as a pickup, but as you said, DC's they're not taking it super seriously because of this much of an underperformance.
It's not even just DC. Like, you think about if you're a candidate and you look at a Joe McGraw performance of losing by about 9, and you're like, well, even if I do 4 points better, I'm still not winning this race, So it hurts when even if there was no chance in hell that you were going to win a race, and you look at some of these districts, we talk about 13th, probably not in play right now. You look at the 8th, probably wasn't in play in last year. But when you underperform by this much, it makes prospective candidates look at your district and say, I've got no chance here. If this guy does this much, even if I do better, which again every politician thinks they can do better, you're turning other potential candidates off. That's why it's so important to run viable campaigns.
Yeah, and that's why I think I need my first drink of the segment, and we're just getting started. All right, I'm done with the Fs. We need to move on from the Fs. So let's go to the next one here. 4th out of 7, finally moving past the Fs. Let's talk Jim Martyr, IL-14. Chris, I know you disagree with this. You thought this should be actually still in the Fs category. What's your thoughts on this one?
I thought this should be an F. That's for more personal reasons. If you all recall, during our pre-election video last time, I had Jim Martyr as my congressional candidate to overperform. I was like, you know what? Jim finally gets through a primary. Finally. He gets his big chance. And it's like he was hitting the ground harder than Greider did a couple years before. And I'm like, listen, I think Trump can trend properly in this district. And he did.
Yeah, that's true.
But Martyr was not able to catch those coattails despite every effort possible to tie himself to Trump and his agenda. And we're seeing that in a lot of these districts, where a lot of, I hear this all the time. Butler, I'm sure, hears it even more than I do down by him, where it's like, listen, we need true MAGA conservative patriots to run. We're seeing how well Trump can do. That's why we need to adopt the Trump brand. I'm looking at people adopting the Trump brand. They're underperforming here, Collin.
Yeah, I mean, look at Martyr did underperform Trump by 5 points, and Trump only lost the district by 5. I mean, so I think to your point, I mean, Trump did increase his numbers. Obviously, statewide he did. But you look at this district, and especially a candidate that had tied themselves so strongly to Trump, you'd think that they would do better. Now, Underwood is a likable, I know people in that area hate when I say this, but based on the data, she overperforms. That means voters do like her. She overperforms, get a little bit of an underperformance by Martyr, and that's what puts us in this boat of a 10-point loss, when it should have been a lot closer.
Well, and Martyr tied himself to Trump, but those were Facebook posts and things of that nature. It wasn't like there wasn't a mailer sent out to Republicans saying like, hey, this guy's swing voters, hey, this guy's is allied with Trump and he's gonna do a good job for us.
Yeah, true. I mean, we haven't pointed that out. Obviously, with some of these campaigns, other than McGraw, they didn't raise a lot of money. They didn't run much of a race. Martyr works his butt off. Always works his butt off. And so for that, we will always give him credit as an individual. Unfortunately, the data gives him a D as a candidate. At least we're out of the Fs. All right, let's keep moving. Now we get 3rd. So now we're above break even. Top 3 of our candidates. This is a little more fun. We can make fewer enemies here. So let's move over to IL-11. Jerry Evans is our 3rd best performer out of the 7 candidates that were in contested races. So who wants this one? I can take it. I mean, Jerry, I know Jerry, so obviously this one's a little bit personal to me, but here's what I want to point out. He essentially tied Trump in his district. So all of these races, he's the first one that didn't underperform Trump. I think it was like 0.1 that he underperformed, but he was right there, which obviously is a big deal. In terms of performance, just in general, that was the second best out of the 7 in terms of his comparison to Trump. Now, what we've said a lot is that this district is, of all the districts, the one that hates Trump the most. And so while he didn't underperform Trump, the aisle 11 just does not like Trump. You can figure out why if you look at it on a map. It's pretty clear why this district isn't a huge Trump district. But for what Jerry had to run in what was a very Democrat district, Jerry did pretty well.
And look, I thought Jerry ran a great primary campaign, and he's ran before, so I think that had some residual effects in the general election in terms of name ID. I think Jerry kind of took his foot off the gas in the general election. Didn't hear as much from him. I remember having some pretty decent fundraising numbers during the primary that made me take a second look and say, well, maybe Jerry can raise a little bit of money here. I didn't think it was in play, but you know what? He raises the money in the general, could be something. Didn't actually come through. But, credit where credit's due. Running even with Trump when you don't have a lot of money is actually a pretty big accomplishment, and not many people understand that.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, again, it's a very Democrat district, at least until Bill Foster gets out and or until the sort of Trump effect wanes. But in that environment, Jerry did pretty well. That's why Jerry is our first C. So congratulations, Jerry.
C's get degrees, folks.
There we go. See, look at that.
Don't get you elected.
This is true. But hey, we are fans of the trades here. And so as you said, it gets Jerry's out there making some money doing God's work. All right, we're going to move to the next one here. And I'll give a hint to our Vanna White that we got to flip the board, which is good news. Our second best performer out of the 7 candidates. That brings us to aisle 6, Nikki Conforti. Chris?
This was the closest congressional race in the state of Illinois. And if you would have told somebody that prior to the election, they would have looked at you like three heads and a tail here, folks. And listen, Nikki, great person. But compared to the race that Keith Pekow ran 2 years prior, that was a full campaign. You had Kevin McCarthy coming into the district a weekend before the election, okay? None of that was happening for Nikki Conforti this time, but there were enough things going in her favor to make this result possible. Caston has problems with the Arab community. The Arab community embraced Nikki Conforti during the race. She overperformed Pekow from 2 years ago in DuPage County, which is a big problem for Republican candidates, as you know. Any district, if it has DuPage County, it's going to be a problem. So Nikki did pretty well there, all things considered. And look, demographically, this district's interesting. You have the DuPage County side trending strongly to the left. Hates Trump. You have the Cook and Chicago side, which are the most conservative, Trump-supporting parts of Cook County. Very interesting dynamic. Credit to Nikki for getting this level of overperformance, being the closest race. She's giving it a run again this upcoming cycle. We'll see how she does, but definitely, I think, not an A. It's kind of a spoiler. My bad. But definitely.
Well, and one thing I want to point out is that this is one of those districts, and we'll talk about this a lot during part 3, that underperforms in off years. And so here's the thing. If you compare how Nikki did this time to how Pekow did last time, yeah, she beat him by 0.3. But if you had Keith in the presidential year, where it's always a 4% better performance by the Republican in this district, now we're talking about a 4.5-point loss, a 4-point loss versus an 8.5-point loss. So it's unfair to compare an off-year candidate to an on-year candidate in this district, but think about how closely that puts aisle 6 into play. You put Keith Pekow in the race he ran 2 years ago into this district, suddenly you're talking about a race that's within 4 to 5 points. Aisle 6 is in spitting distance to potentially be in play in the near future, so we should keep that in mind. And that gives us our first official B. That's exciting. Well done, Nikki. All right, our number 1 performer out of the 7 congressional districts that were contested, we go to aisle 10, Jim Karras. Who wants this one? Neither of you? I can jump in. I mean, here, he overperformed Trump by 2 points. This is the only candidate we've got that's the best of all the 7 congressionals, the only of the 7 who actually overperformed Trump's performance by 2 points. Now, obviously, Trump did very poorly in that district. He lost by 22 in that district. So we're not saying the district is in play, but again, we're comparing how a candidate performs to the baseline. And Karras raised a good amount of money. He built out a specific image as a candidate. They worked hard, even though they knew this was a deep blue district that was never going to be in play. To that, I thank Jim and his team because they all knew what they were going up against. They knew in a presidential year with Trump at the top of the ticket, this was not going to happen. But they ran enough of a race to overperform Trump by 2, which makes it the best performance of any of these 7. So to that, I just say kudos.
And look, you've heard me talk numerous times if you watch all these videos, and if you do that, kudos to you. But you've heard me talk many times about just running quality campaigns. Even if they're not multi-million-dollar races where you're on TV, you're on digital, mail. If you can run a full campaign, even in an unwinnable district like IL-10, this is the type of thing you're able to accomplish because we're here talking about this is like the best race in the entire state for congressional districts, basically. Yep. And this is the stuff you're able to accomplish. And I agree with Collin. Credit to Jim Karras. They knew what they were getting themselves into. They ran an extremely respectable race, and I hope there's a future for Jim Karras and the likes of him in this part.
Yeah. And again, remember, we're not looking at the final result. I can see that number. He lost by 20. We get it. It's not about what was their final result. It was, did they over or underperform what they should have? That's what you've got to look at if you're going to analyze election results, especially looking to the future. Because we've got to know, is there room to grow in a district or is that district dead? You got to know that. So that's why you look at performance compared to Trump and compared to baseline. Did you over or underperform? So we've got another B. Unfortunately, Jim, it wasn't enough to be an A. We've got some A's coming soon, but this one was a B, but it was a solid B. Congratulations. With that, we're going to move to the state Senate so we can all get ready for that. I'm going to grab my next stack of cards here. Abby's going to flip the board again. And while she does that, we're going to do an honorable mention. There was a district here that we didn't have a candidate in that we should have. So that's why you've got an NA here and a blank card. This is Senate District 28. Laura Murphy, we missed it. We didn't run a candidate. We totally missed it. Trump only lost it by 9. I'm not saying we would have won that district, but we've got a lot of districts we're about to talk about where Trump lost it 8, 9 points. That's right where this was, and we let Laura Murphy have a complete pass. I really hope in the future we look at 28. I'm not saying it's 100% in play. We'll talk about that in part 3. The fact that Trump only lost it by 9, though, we should have at least had a candidate in that race. So it's a mention. We could have had a candidate there. I wish that we did. Of the 4 remaining races that we're going to talk about in the state Senate race, because remember, for state Senate, there was only a few districts that were even up in this last one. So we're going to get through this one pretty quickly. There's only 4 races we're going to look at. Let's start with the 4th out of 4. It would have probably been 20th out of 20 if we had 20 districts here. We've got Crystal Villia. I'm not even going to say it right. Soltow. I don't want to screw up. I don't want to screw up the other name here. 4th out of 4, and this is a significantly big gap here in this race. Candidate massively underperformed Trump by more than 14 points in the district, underperformed the baseline by over 18. There was a time where people were really excited about her as a candidate. The performance here was pretty abysmal.
And then, like you said, there was a lot of excitement. And then I think after she got the nomination, because I think she kicked her primary opponent off the ballot because he got way less signatures than he should have or something like that. After that, nothing happened. You never heard about SD 34 the entire cycle after petition season.
So, not a surprise. We can move on. That's clearly enough. So, let's just do that. This one is not going to make us any friends, but again, we're literally just going off the data. The next who's third is Philip Nagel. The one race where the Senate Republicans did play, where money was spent in Senate District 40, and it did not go well. Candidate underperformed Trump by 12.5 points. Trump only lost this district by 0.3, and yet we lost it by 13. Chris?
Look, I've said on the record many times, I will still give the Senate Republicans credit for trying somewhere. And based on how Trump did, I think we can all agree if you were going to try anywhere, this was probably the district.
But doesn't it call into question the try?
Oh, certainly.
I mean, whether or not you should have tried, you and I have had debates, and I'm on record saying I don't think they should have. But I'll say, looking at how Trump only lost it by 0.3, maybe I was wrong on that. But if you did play, even for a short period, to come in 12.5 points behind Trump after having spent some money, that's not good.
And look, there's a thing about this district. This is my neck of the woods, Southern Cook County, rural Will County, rural Kankakee County. This is an ancestrally Democratic district, okay? You're talking working class district, so they are more likely, yes, to have a down ballot Republican underperform Trump. True. Certainly true. Patrick Joyce is not Dan Lipinski. He's not. So there's no reason why it should be, what is this? That's basically a 12.5 point underperformance for the nominee. I don't think Phil Nagel is a particularly exciting candidate.
True.
I don't think there's anybody in the state who would disagree with me on that point. If Nagel loses this by 8, I think we're talking a little bit different here.
Yeah.
But 12.8, I mean, this is, and the districts that we're going to be talking about after this, coming soon, like you'll see, like he did worse than them, and there was nothing going on there. So listen, I still give a little bit of credit for trying. The number will back me up on that, but yeah, like you got to do better than this, guys.
Yeah, well, especially we'll talk about it. 2026. Senate Republicans were sort of on the bench in 2024. They are up in the hot seat. They have almost every big race for 2026. So hopefully there's some lessons learned here, and 2026 will be a much stronger year because we're going to need it.
Absolutely.
All right. Again, not making friends, but the data says that's an F. Blame her, not me. All right, let's move to the next one. We've got 2 left, so our second best of the remaining here. We've got Senate District 19, Samantha Gaska. This is right in your backyard, Chris. What do you think about that?
You know, this was the closest Senate race in 2022. So part of it, you have to look at this and be like, wow, the Republicans lost that much percent in just 2 years. And that's frustrating. It is. At the same time, considering like all the allegations against Senator Hastings and considering how poor of a campaign that Sam Gaska ran, a little bit of credit here. Like, they did better than Nagel did in the 40th.
I mean, she underperformed Trump by 4 and the baseline by 4. So we're not talking about a great campaign here because there was limited campaign. I think that probably speaks to that Hastings does have some vulnerability. I mean, if Sam Gaska can run basically no race and still only fall 4 points behind the baseline, that does tell you there is some vulnerability for Hastings.
Oh, yeah, and the district's trending in the right direction, too.
Which we'll talk about.
And it's a reminder of how quickly people forget.
Yeah. Especially if you're in the Senate Republican or Senate Democratic caucus. You can do whatever the hell you want, apparently. So, yeah. All right. So, Sam Gaska, well done. You get second, even though there's a small sample size, and you get a C. All right. The number one performer, I don't think any of us talked about this district at all throughout the course of the election cycle. We're going to Senate District 49, Katie Dean Schlottman. Katie Dean Schlottman. And that's I know nothing about this race, other than we ran the data, only underperformed Trump by less than 3, and actually came within a point of the baseline. So we're talking about, obviously this wasn't a district where a lot of money was spent. 49 was not on anybody's radar. But of all the races that were sort of in that 10-point window of break even, this was the best performance by far. So we got to give credit where it's due.
Listen, I know Katie fairly well. She's a hardworking candidate, and she made it her goal basically this entire cycle to say, I'm going to do as best as I can. That was basically her goal this entire cycle. And listen, it shows up in the numbers. Again, a district trending to the right with Trump, pretty working class in some areas, and obviously still underperformed Trump. But these are the type of performances you have to have compared to Trump, like to start moving a district in the right direction. Certainly. So, Katie, great credit to you. You ran, with what you had, you ran a great race. There's a future for her in Will County politics and state politics.
Yeah. Honestly, I'd say let's get her on an episode of SFR. Like I don't know her, and I feel bad not knowing her. I mean, you look at the performance of these 4 candidates we talked about, and you look at from the 34th district, negative 18 to whereas she was just negative 1. So they talk about a gap between our first and fourth place. That gets you a solid B. Well done, Katie. All right, we're going to transition to the House races. Obviously, there's going to be a good number of these. Same as before, we'll go worst to best. So Abby will flip the board so we can get ready. I'm going to grab the stack. This is a bigger stack. We got a lot of races to go through. First, before we get into the races that we are giving the ranks for and the grades for, there are 2 more we need to talk about. Districts that we didn't find a candidate in. House District 55 against Marty Moylan. You see it's an NA because we did not have a candidate. Trump only lost this district by less than 7. You've also got House District 68. Listen, I know nobody wants to face Dave Vella. I get it. But Trump only lost that district by a tad over 7%. These are 2 districts where Trump was right around 7%. I'm not saying we would have won them, but you look at some of these districts that we were playing in, Trump was right at that. You're talking about a 6 or 7% where Trump was at, where he lost by. So some of the districts we spent money in, these 2 districts would have been just like that. So 55 and 68, missed opportunities, I would say. All right, let's go to our actual races we are looking at. So there are 19 that we're going to look at who were right in that competitive window, or at least close to being competitive. We're going to go through all 19 of those. The first one is going to make Michael Butler cry. The 19th out of 19, unfortunately, was Jay Keevan, House District 112. Michael, now I know you disagree with this. You gave Jay a C for your grade, so you can start here. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, I think all things considered, data's the data, but slated candidate, got in late. I mean, they put up a good fight, did what they needed to do, but just came up short again. Katie Stewart, it's just a tough nut to crack.
Yeah, I mean, listen, obviously there were some challenges. Starting late, that's not his fault. So we understand that. The data, as you said, is the data. Sometimes there's a couple names here coming up soon that are going to hurt me personally, so we'll get to those. But, I mean, Trump did underperform here, too. That didn't help Jay at all. Trump didn't do as well, I think, as a lot of people had hoped he would do. And then the candidate fell short of Trump by another 2 points beyond that. And you look at the various rankings, and he's right there at 18th or 19th in all the different metrics we were looking to rank. So sorry to say, data is the data. Sadly, Jay, this one's an F. We love you. Thank you for running. But we're going to have to put it on the board. All right, next one. This one hurts me. 18th out of 19. I'm going to pull it up. I'm going to cry a little bit. Tossie Ufordike, 51st District. Now, Tossie came in with a lot of promise and then was abandoned, didn't have a lot of support behind her, a lot of money behind her. The party moved on from her. I understand why. The district certainly is trending against us, so I get why. That does give Tossie a little bit of a, hey, listen, I mean, they were with Jay a lot more certainly than they were with Tossie in terms of the money spent and support given. However, you look at this district, Trump underperformed, the candidate underperformed, and sadly, the candidate's underperformance was the worst of all 19. So that's what puts us right here at 18th out of 19. Anything to share, or did I cover it, guys?
I just hope I never have to hear about House District 51 ever again, at least for the foreseeable future. I know there are...
Well, we'll talk about that a little later in the video.
Well, there are bleeding hearts like you who believe certain things, and there are more stone-cold people who believe certain things like myself.
In some cases, you got to look at the full picture, like Senate District 26 being a battleground. This is one of those House districts, so we still got to move what votes we can. Either way, I love you, Tossie. You know that, but the data is the data, and I can't cheat. It is an F. I'm sorry. All right, let's go to the next one here. House District 66. Lori Parman. We talked about this race a lot during the course of the campaign. A missed opportunity in that Trump did decently well in that district. He only lost by 6. But the candidate was a challenge. We said this during the beginning of the race. Candidate was recruited here, or the candidate that ended up being our nominee here, has some problems locally with the school district, with some of the local families, isn't an overly well-liked candidate in the district. You see that playing out here in the candidate's performance. Came close to matching Trump's performance, but significantly underperformed the district itself and was our 17th out of 19 candidates. I really hope, and we'll talk about districts in part 3, I really hope we can do better in 66 because we could come way closer in 66. The good news here is the underperformance wasn't as bad as the other two, so this one's a D, thankfully, so we're out of the Fs here. Any other thoughts, guys, or is that an A?
I just think I think we mentioned this on election night. It's interesting how much better she did compared to other people who got more, who were arguably better candidates and ran better races, and she got closer. And that just shows the potential of this.
I mean, and that's what we'll talk about in part 3 for sure. All right, let's go to the next one here. I said that some of these were going to hurt me. I'm going to get texts. I'm going to get calls. Please, I did not make these rankings. The data did. I'm sorry. House District 104, Brandon Schweizer. This one hurts. Somebody start this one for me. So you're going to make me do it?
Underperforming Trump. That's rough.
I mean, Chris, you had this as C. Michael, you had this in A. I mean, if we're going on our feelings, I mean, I love Brandon. I love his campaign manager. I know they worked their butts off. So all of that, I never would have had this at this low, but the data is the data. Trump did decently well in this district. The candidate underperformed by 2 points in what isn't a district that totally hates Trump. I mean, you look at how did Trump do in 104. Hold on, I'm scrolling. Scrolling here, Trump he won the district by 2.5, and then our candidate, obviously Brandon, won it by 0.5. So this is district Trump won by 2.5 points.
The Democrats had their ideal perfect candidate in this race, and I think that was why they were able to peel some of those voters off and have some split ticket.
That is true.
Because union background,
but
is more moderate.
Our candidate also had plenty of resources too. Yeah. So and our candidate is a good candidate. I mean, no one would disagree this is a good candidate. While you're right, it doesn't let us off the hook on this one.
I think I think part of the problem too is that, again, I'm jumping on the bandwagon here with Michael and defending this, but part of the problem is too, Schweitzer's an appointed incumbent. Marin had been in this district for so long, so you have a little bit. I mean, yeah, appointed incumbent, sure, but you have a little bit of an uphill battle to try and get some of that name ID back that Marin had in this district. Right. You know, Democrats did put a lot of resources into this race. If this district shows up again, if I'm still working here after 2026, a lot of questions being asked here. But if this district also shows up this low in the rankings after 2026, then we can start talking. I think this one might need a cycle to get Schweitzer.
And there is something to be said for the fact that our data pulls from the last 8 years of performance in the district, and Mike Marin did always overperform. And so now we're comparing Brandon to Marin, who in that district was a bit of a god. So that is a little bit unfair. So again, there's reasons why we're here. And personally, we would rank this higher, but this, as the data, is coming in at a D. But we're hoping in 2026 we see this improved, and we're going to talk about that in part 3. All right, let's go to the next one. House District 97, Gabby Shanahan. Chris?
A lot of hype here. I was part of the hype train from the beginning. You all know this. There was a video that lasted about 3 hours. I think it was at the time it was the longest video I ever made, and I said this was sneakily in play. Nobody believed me at the time. Then the House Republicans invested a lot of money, and Trump. I think the philosophy of this district was that it's actually more against Trump than it actually is.
I mean, Trump lost it by 4.
Right, but I think that
That's not bad at all.
there was a mentality because Batnick always overperformed Trump in this district. And it was always Batnick had to do better than Trump in order to win. So I think there was a philosophy here that the type of candidate and the type of campaign that was ran was more tailored for overperforming Trump, and then this district actually is more working class than you might think. So you run into the problem of now you're actually underperforming Trump in your numbers.
The good news for Republican candidates at the House level is we're going to start getting to candidates who all overperform Trump. This isn't like congressional where everyone was falling behind, or the state Senate where everyone was falling behind Trump. I mean, she only underperformed Trump by 0.5. And she only underperformed the baseline by 0.1. So we're not talking about a massive underperformance here, but it was an underperformance, unfortunately.
Right. And I think even 2022, I think Michelle Smith actually overperformed Bailey. So there was a philosophy of trying to overperform Trump, and Trump ends up passing them by. In the future, I think the philosophy of campaign in this district is going to be different.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Working class district, there's opportunities here for sure. 97 is not out of play, which we'll talk about in the third section of this video. In the meantime, we got to put up the ranking. We've all been on the record to varying degrees. We like Gabby a lot. So again, the data's the data. This one goes up, unfortunately, as a D. All right, let's move to our next race. This is 14th out of our 19. So we're starting to get closer to break even. This is House District 91, Desi Anderson. Anybody got thoughts on this one? I can jump in and talk about it. I mean, Trump performed pretty badly in this district, especially just coming out of talking about 97. 91, Trump did not do well at all. He lost by 10. Certainly that doesn't help us. And the candidate outperformed Trump by 3. Unfortunately, she also underperformed the baseline by 5. And so I think the point here is, in this district, it's one of those districts, and it doesn't surprise you if you look at the map, where Trump just cratered. And so the candidate was going to need to overperform Trump by a lot more than she was able to overperform Trump. And unfortunately, she just wasn't able to do it. Kudos for beating Trump by 3 in this district. But the baseline had this much closer to losing by 5. Or even, I'm sorry, not losing by 5. Hold on, let me find it. I don't want to say the wrong thing here. Much closer to losing it by like 2 or 3 as opposed to losing it by 7. So that's where the underperformance comes in. But she is getting closer to sort of that break-even mark. So at least kudos to that. All right, we'll move on from this. Another D, unfortunately. All right, let's go to the next one. House District 49. Not a lot of resources were spent here for Hannah Billingsley. Not a lot of focus was put on the race. But if you look at the data, there's actually some positive things that we see here in this race. And Chris, you actually gave this candidate a B.
I did, because now we're starting to look in a positive direction in terms of performance. Up until this point, I believe all of our people had kind of been underperforming the baseline by various degrees. Yep. So now we're looking in a positive direction. Hannah Billingsley, this is another candidate who I think, give it another runaround, give her some money. We'll be putting this one towards the top of our list.
Yeah, I mean,
I think
just to be clear, you said she overperformed. She overperformed the baseline by 2 points. I mean, this was a great performance, especially for a candidate who was brand new and didn't have resources behind her. We're not necessarily saying we're going to win this district, though we're going to talk about it in part 3 on whether or not we should focus on it. But seeing this candidate overperform by 2, again, everyone else previous to this had underperformed, so that's notable. Yeah, all right, so that moves us into the C category. Hannah, you're our first C for the House. Well done. All right, this next one certainly was not shy of resources. House District 45. Dennis Rebeletti in the 45th District. Chris, you've got lots of friends in DuPage County. Maybe you should start on this one.
Yeah, so there was a philosophy in this race that we were going to try out have the Republican openly say they're pro-choice, even though their voting record had nothing to do with that. But don't look at those facts. And we're going to put a lot of money into this race, and it's an open seat because the former incumbent Democrat just was the disaster pretty much. So that Curtis doesn't run again. You're running against Marty Deuter. Democrats put a lot of money into this race, a lot, and they ran a really, really good campaign. That being said...
And Trump lost by 13.
Yes. So, yeah, respecting the fact that you need to overperform Trump by a lot to do well in this district, I think that there needs to be a reevaluation of the philosophy. And listen, this is another question that we're going to look at in the third part of this video, so I don't want to get into too much detail, but I do think there needs to be a different philosophy of campaigning when it comes to this.
Let me just make something clear. We'll disagree on that. I mean, Chris, I know you graded this a D, and you just gave your reasons why. I would have been C or maybe even better, and I'll say why. I mean, this candidate overperformed Trump by 5 points. So you said that this candidate needed to beat Trump. I mean, he did by 5, which so far of all the candidates that we're looking at is the best of so far. So, I mean, you talk about, yes, that district is trending away from us. I don't know that that's Rebeletti's fault. I don't know that's the Republican Party's fault. I mean, this is just, there is a strong anti-Trump sentiment in that region of the world. Trump cratered in that district. He lost it by almost 13. So you got a candidate here who, yes, according to the baseline, could have done better, but he overperformed Trump by 5, and I'll take that.
Look, final point on this race, there are certain districts and areas in the state where you overperform Trump just by being on the ballot, okay? So there can't be too much credit given in that regard, because if we had House District 59 on this list, which I think that's the right one, spitball in there, if we had House District 59 on this list, I'm sure the Republican there overperformed Trump by 12. Are we going to give that candidate credit for just showing up and having the rich people in Island Park vote for him? No. So there's a similar dynamic here. You got to do better when you have a closer race like that.
Well, the data gives us one a C, so we'll give this to our Vanna White to pop up that as a C. All things considered, it was a respectable performance, and I'll leave it at that. All right, let's go to one that I know we're all going to have a lot of fun discussing. Let's move to House District 52. It is the 11th best performance out of the 19. Marty McLaughlin. We've spent a lot of time talking about Marty. Let me lay the groundwork here for this discussion, then pass it to Michael and Chris. So the candidate, Marty, overperformed Trump by 5. So that is significant. However, the candidate underperformed the district and the baseline. And so that's something you got to keep in mind. Though, we'll be fair, the recent trend of that district being so bad for us, the candidate at least beat the worst parts of that trend by 3. So there's some numbers here that look bad for this candidate, some numbers that look good for this candidate. And here's a little peek behind the curtain. Chris gave this candidate an A, Michael gave this candidate an F. So I'm just going to sit back and have some fun here. Chris has talked a lot. Let's let Michael go first. Go ahead, Michael.
I just think this should not have been a race that we won by 47 votes. And the overperforming Trump, good for him. Underperforming the district itself by what, 4 points? Yeah. 4 points.
Yeah, I mean, this is an R4 district. And locally and at different levels other than Trump, Republicans do perform a lot better in this district than Marty performed. So that's what I'm saying. Half these metrics don't look so good. You just covered the half that don't look so good. Now, Chris, go ahead.
Look, to all you doom grifters out there, this is a message to you. The plan trusters, we're back, okay? Every single one of you doom grifters wrote this district off. They were planning Marty McLaughlin's wake at the funeral home in Barrington 2 weeks before Election Day. And this guy finds a way to win. And here we got people, and listen, Collin, going to give this district a pretty decent grade probably. But we still got people to this day who are finding reasons to doubt Marty McLaughlin. Should he run for Senate? No, bad idea. But in this district, we're still finding ways to win. Could he have done better? Yes, but everybody had this guy losing by 10. All right? So I don't want to hear it that, Marty McLaughlin, look at the underperformance of the baseline. Look at how well Republicans do down ballot. Yeah, I'm sure the rich people in Barrington like voting for, county treasurer to be a Republican more than they like voting for Marty McLaughlin. Sure. Oh, well, he's still winning, guys. So, Marty McLaughlin, you still got some plan trusters out here. Don't do anything stupid, buddy.
Listen, as we said, there are some metrics here that play really well for Marty, some that don't play so well. It's an interesting sort of dynamic going back and forth, just looking at these numbers on the spreadsheet. The reality is Michael's not wrong and Chris isn't wrong. It's a difficult district for us. Marty did do well. I will point out that in our predictions, I said Marty would squeak this out, that it'd be this close, that the count would go on for weeks. And I was 100% right, so I will point that out to Chris.
Look, the count didn't have any reason to go on that long, for the record. Collin was 100% right, credit where credit is due. But, people actually, some people were calling this race for Marty a week before the final count. And it's oh, no, he only won by 47. Don't know what happened there. Always pay attention to your county clerk's office, folks, because you never know what's going on over there.
Either way, it is a solid B, and congratulations, Marty. You're our first B for the House. Well done. All right, let's go to our next district here, one that probably keeps some people, including us, up at night. House District 76, Liz Bishop, a potential pickup for us in this last election. We came so close. The candidate actually performed pretty well. Who's got some thoughts on this one? Chris, I know you graded this one an A.
Yeah, I did grade this one an A, and I actually graded it an A- in my rankings, and the A- was because we lost. At some level, I think even myself was guilty of kind of not accepting the fact that we could win this district in the last couple weeks. And I think there are other people who thought that way too, and that's the reason why we ended up losing this district. Listen, this district has not been in play for a while now. It hasn't. And I think it kind of caught some people by surprise how weak a candidate Amy Berry-Briel was for the Democrats. Liz Bishop, great candidate for us. I think a little bit more of a push. And there's some districts on this list who got a lot more resources than Liz Bishop did, okay? We're going to talk about some things in part 3, yes. But all I'm saying is this should have been a win. This should be number 1 on our list. Maybe not 1, but this should be higher on our list. Got to do better, but you know what? Still a great performance.
Let's give some metrics. Liz beat Trump by nearly 5 points. She beat the baseline by nearly 5 points, which was the best performance of any Republican challenger in a contested race. So there's some really good numbers here for Liz. But as you said, you also look at it, and there's also just that little sliver of space that you can see that it could have been just a little bit better, and that's what's going to keep us up at night. However, Liz certainly deserves a lot of kudos for the race that she ran, considering everything she had or what limited resources she had. The data does still keep this in the B category, but it's a solid B. Well done, Liz Bishop. Let's move to the next one. This one might be a surprise to some people. Let's talk about House District 81, Aaron Porter. I called this one of those districts in our rankings and our picks before Election Day that would surprise people. And the final result, him losing by 13, made me look like an idiot. However, now looking at how candidates performed compared to Trump in their district, Aaron Porter was the 5th best of any of these 19 compared to Trump. It was Trump that cratered in this district, and that's why we lost it by 13. So I'm feeling a little bit vindicated on this one. Chris, I know you graded this candidate a C, so I'd like to know your thoughts on that. But when I said this would be not a win, but a little bit of a surprise, I think it was in my surprise category or my overperformance category, the fact that Porter was 5th best compared to Trump on the ballot. At a certain point, you can only overperform Trump so much. Trump cratered in this district. I got to find the numbers here. I should have had it more on top.
Like 20.
Yeah, Trump lost it by 21 points. This candidate overperformed Trump by over 8 and only missed the baseline by less than 1%. That's pretty dang good for a candidate that didn't have a lot of resources.
In terms of my private grading, or I guess public now, you get graded.
It's all public once I know about it.
You get graded on a curve if you're a candidate in DuPage County. Sometimes it benefits you, sometimes it hurts you. In this case, it hurt Aaron Porter. Listen, credit where credit is due. This is another one of those cases similar to Jim Karras in the 10th, where there was a group of people who said, we're running a campaign here. Win, lose, draw, we're running a campaign. That was Tim Ozinga. That was a big tent coalition. Credit to them. They invested heavily on door knocking. They must have knocked on every door in that district 3 times. Whether or not it's effective or not, that's another episode. But they put a lot of resources into this district. And yeah, did they win? No. But it also goes to show you what you can do when you actually look at a district and say, screw it, we're doing something here. And it might not have worked here, but it just shows what it could do in other districts.
And listen, there's another point, about a 1.5 points of upward potential in this district, which means we're not winning it right now, but it does mean we can keep growing in 81, and then maybe in the future as the Trump effect wanes, this is a district we could possibly be looking at. It's still in the B category, but we are solidly in B. Well done, Aaron Porter and team. All right, this next one here is going to shock a lot of people. It shocked me when I pulled it up. But again, we are looking at candidate performance against what they should have, who over or underperformed. House District 57, Daniel Baer, a name that most people probably don't even know. But according to the district, we are looking at a candidate who solidly overperformed Trump, who came close to the baseline. He only fell 0.2 behind the baseline, and he overperformed Trump by over 6 points. This was one of the best performances in what was essentially a non-contested race. I understand it. Republicans weren't gunning for Tracy Katzmule, but Daniel Baer, again, we're just looking at the data. You've got some solid overperformances here, which is worthy of being called out. And if nothing else, just saying, well done. You ran in a district that everyone knew was just not going to go for us, but you worked your butt off, and the data says you moved some numbers.
And listen, Daniel Baer's a great guy. I had a privilege of talking to him a number of times about his race. And he's still interested in the party, and he just ran for township supervisor this last time, I believe. So he's gonna be around for a while. But I do want to add the caveat that this is one of those districts I mentioned earlier of like, you put a Republican on the ballot, they're probably going to overperform Trump by a pretty significant.
And you're right. However, that would also mean then if I look at the performance against the baseline, we wouldn't see this good of a performance. So while I grant you that may be in play for the fact that he overperformed Trump by 6, the fact that he came within 0.2 of the baseline, which of all the districts we've talked about so far, that's like the third best of all the districts we've got on the board here for the state house. So again, it deserves at least some kudos.
Definitely.
A solid B. Well done, Daniel. All right, let's keep moving along here. Next is House District 63. Steve Reich. We had a number of people who said in the lead up to that race, or at least early on in that race, wow, Reich is in trouble, Reich's going to lose. A few people who are friends of ours who are like, Reich's going to lose, it's sneaky, it's going to happen, he's going down. Turns out that didn't happen. He overperformed Trump by 6 in the district. He beat the baseline by 2. That district is trending away from us, which we're going to talk about in part 3. However, you've got an incumbent who did what he was supposed to do. He overperformed enough that this race never ended up really being in play, though 5.5 points of a win is a little too close for my taste. However, it was a win. It was solid. Any thoughts? Ultimately here, what I will say is we're starting to get into the incumbent territory. And this was the worst performance of the incumbents who weren't necessarily facing solid challengers who were well-funded. So while this is going to be an A, it's at the bottom of the A's. There certainly could have been a better performance here, especially when you start hearing some of the numbers we give for the next 6. All right, so we got an A here. Our first A on the board. Well done, Steve Reich. All right, next one we're going to talk about here is Jackie Haas, House District 79. We said over and over, this district's not in play. Still, lots of money was wasted in the district, but whatever. The point is, this is a district where Jackie did very, very well. She overperformed Trump by 5.6. She overperformed the baseline by 7. That's what we've been saying for a while. Jackie is really well liked, frankly loved in that district. She's always going to overperform. She overperformed the baseline by 7 points, which is the best so far of any of the districts we've talked about. Well done, Jackie. Any thoughts?
Yeah, look, I think the reason it's this low is because the Democrats actually had like they gave a half-decent go at the district, ran a pretty good candidate in Billy Morgan, but again, like they ran up against the brick wall that was Jackie Haas's electoral viability. So, like, again, credit to her.
That's an A. Let's keep going. House District 47, Amy Grant. I want to know why Chris gave this a B in our rankings, but I'm going to give you some data. Trump performed badly in this district, but this candidate, Amy Grant, beat him by nearly 11 points. She achieved the third best performance amongst our top contended races. It seems like every election, people are writing Amy Grant off, and yet every election she finds a way to pull it off. Just so you know, Trump lost that district by over 10 points, yet Amy Grant pulled it off by half a point. And that's why when we go back to people like Marty and we say he could have done a bit better, that's why he was a B and not an A. They spent lots of money against Amy Grant, and Trump cratered in that district by more than Trump lost Marty's district, and yet Amy still pulled it off. She beat him by a huge number, 11 points. So I want to know, Chris, why'd you give Amy a B?
You get him to DuPage County, Chris?
So it's just because you want DuPage to hate you?
Yeah, exactly. They haven't done anything for me lately. What are we doing here, folks? But listen. This is
Lane in post put Chris's phone number right there, so they can all call it.
They know how to contact me. They don't know where I live, but they know how to contact me. Anyway, this is what I was talking about earlier about like Dennis Reboletti. Like, this is the type of overperformance you need to win these types of districts. And I think Amy Grant being the incumbent definitely played a big role here. The Democrats are not going to stop gunning for this one, nor should they, frankly. That's a different question. But Amy Grant, credit where credit is due, I wrote her off. You know, we're talking about doom grifters. I wrote Amy Grant off. I'm Joe Jerkoff over here. But
who here said she was going to win?
You're so optimistic.
I think there were two people here who said she was going to win, not just one.
yeah, and then I was the idiot over here, like, nope, she's toast. Like,
Do you want to apologize to Michael Butler on air?
No.
Not me. I know you want to apologize to me, but look at how Michael Butler. I mean, look at how sweet. You don't apologize to him.
I'm not apologizing for his bad words about my boy Marty McLaughlin. Okay, when he apologizes for that, perhaps I will consider, folks, an apology to Butler.
All right, we got another A here. Well done, Amy Grant. All right, Michael, you've had to sit quietly for a minute. I want to hear your thoughts on this one. Our fourth best performance, and it was a doozy. We've got Kevin Schmidt here, House District 114. Let's give some numbers just so we've got the context. He overperformed Trump by nearly 6. He beat the baseline by over 8. That was the best performance of any Republican incumbent in a highly contested race. Trump in that district actually lost it by over a point. Yet here we've got Kevin pulling it off by 4.5. This is a great performance. It's why we're looking at fourth best. And as a sort of spoiler alert, the 3 that are above him didn't really have contested races. So of all the contested races, this is number 1, Kevin Schmidt. What do you got? Want to take a victory lap?
What else would you expect out of Kevin Schmidt?
I mean, take a victory lap on air, man. Come on.
That's true.
I mean, not only is Kevin a great candidate, I know you worked your butt off. That's your region.
He's my state rep,
Yep.
actually.
You knocked on a couple kajillion doors.
Yeah.
I mean,
Kevin does a great job. He gets out, works the district. He knocked a lot of doors himself, which I think had a big impact. And also, he was running against LaToya Greenwood.
This is true.
Literally running against LaToya Greenwood.
This is true.
So,
if we were doing pluses, this would start our A+ category. Well done, Kevin.
fingers crossed we get one more race against her.
LaToya, you know what?
Careful what you wish for.
Third time is the charm. We really encourage you. Like, you should be a state rep again. Please run again, right?
I'm very hesitant to say these things. Come on, man. Do you know the Democratic Party? They're coming for all of us, man.
And if they run LaToya, that's excellent.
We'll beat her by like 6.
Sheesh. All right. We've got our top 3 now. None of these were in contested races. However, we still want to talk about it. They still did overperform, and they deserve a mention. Let's talk about House District 65, Dan Ugasti. Wasn't ever really a targeted race, but again, we're basing this all on the data. He overperformed Trump by over 10 points. He beat the baseline by over 3 points. And this is a district that's actually trending towards break even. This is not a deep red district. So Dan Ugasti deserves a lot of kudos for that. Our third best performance. Anything else to add, or does that pretty much cover it?
I just want to say, Dan Ugasti, when he was considering running for governor, he's not going to be running for governor. He did hype up his ability to overperform Trump, and you can see in the numbers he was 100% right.
Yeah, absolutely. Another A+, but we're just doing A's, so we'll put it up under the A's. All right, let's go up to another of our favorites here, House District 82. Nicole Laha was our second best performer in this last election. Trump actually did decently well in this district, but the candidate did even better. She overperformed Trump by 12, over 12, was the second best of all Republicans in contested races. Big win by Nicole Laha. Now, a lot of money was spent to achieve that. I hope we learn our lesson here. Clearly, Nicole Laha has built up a profile. Her district loves her. She is good. However, the data is the data. That's our second best performance, and it's well earned for Nicole. Any other thoughts?
We should have spent less, outperformed by like 7, and then we probably would have had 2 more victories, you know?
I mean, you're not wrong, but that's not the focus of this.
Listen, Butler, if Granny had wheels, she'd be a wagon. We're not at that point yet, you know?
Either way, the focus here is on Nicole. She was our second best performer. She's definitely an A+. Well done, Nicole. Our final, our number 1, House District 48, Jennifer Sanalitro. Based on the data, she is the number 1 performer in House Republican districts. Trump actually did decently well in this district, but yet again, you've got a candidate who did even better. She outperformed Trump by over 11. And then his overall performance compared to the baseline was our number 1 candidate compared to the baseline. She did incredibly well, won by 16 points. It's well earned. And that's not an R16 district, let's be clear here. And so, if you put your random Republican in that district, it's R1. Trump won it by almost 5, so maybe it's more like R3 or R4 today. This is not an R16 district, and yet Sanalitro won it by 16. So clearly was our number 1 performer.
Good for her.
This is I mentioned this earlier. This is the part of DuPage that actually likes Trump a little bit. That helped her, but my goodness. I mean, this is an overperformance. Credit to Jennifer Sanalitro, her team, for whatever they did to get this type of overperformance.
I mean, think about it, wasn't that long ago, this was one of the races Democrats were targeting, and now they're likely not even going to look at this district because Sanalitro will blow anybody out the water who challenges her. All right, that's our data from 2024. That gives us a picture of how did candidates perform. Did they did they underperform? Next, we're going to look at turnout data, and then we'll get into which districts we should be targeting in 2026, so stick with us. Any analysis of 2024 and 2026 would be incomplete if we didn't look at the overall turnout data. Remember, every election is determined by 2 factors, affinity and propensity. Affinity is how you might vote, but propensity is did you actually vote? And so an analysis of the turnout is looking at who actually showed up in the 2024 election. We do this every cycle, but as we look towards 2026, we got to know who's going to the polls right now. That will help us identify which districts and which counties are and are not in play in 2026. Let's start with this. Overall turnout was down about 2.5 points. What do you guys see? Our data wizard Abe just got us all the final data here for us to review. So we're kind of going through it as you see us talk. It's about 2.5 points, almost exactly 2.5 points statewide, but I see a bit of a variance here between how turnout went down in some areas, but up in others. What are you guys seeing here?
You're looking at more than a 5% drop in turnout in Chicago, which is a lot to do with this.
And almost as bad in suburban Cook County, too.
Almost as bad in suburban Cook County. You have these deep Democratic areas which didn't have as robust turnout as probably the Democratic Party wanted or expected. And I think it's going to be a problem in future years. Just looking ahead a little bit here, that if Chicago and Cook County turnout continues to lag behind, it's going to be problematic.
Yeah, I mean, that's over 5 points in Chicago. That's almost 5 points in the suburban Cook County. That is absolutely problematic.
Right, but in addition, you see a little bit of a drop in downstate, a little bit less than 2 points.
Butler's problem.
Yeah, Butler, what the hell are you doing down there in St. Clair County? But in any case, you're actually seeing turnout increase in the suburbs. Very interesting development there. So a lot of the turnout decrease you're seeing is from the city of Chicago and suburban Cook County, not necessarily in the collar counties, which are more swing areas.
Yeah, I mean, those suburban numbers show, it's less than a point overall in terms of overall voter turnout, but it's interesting when you look at some of these counties in terms of where we saw gains and where we saw drops. But overall, you can definitely see that the voter turnout held pretty steady in the suburbs, which have been trending more blue.
Yeah. 0.6 of a point basically was the difference between 2024 and 2020.
Almost 7, but yeah, it's when everywhere else went down, that's certainly notable.
That's steady.
To defend Butler a little bit, turnout in St. Clair County only barely went down between 2020 and 2024, and most of that's probably coming from East St. Louis.
St. Louis,
right.
Yeah.
So you actually did a pretty good job.
Yeah, 3/10 of a
What do you keep kissing up to Butler for?
2/10 of a point.
Is he your ride home or something?
Listen,
What is going on?
he's
Congressman of the Illinois 12th Congressional District one day, I want to be first in line for that chief of staff position. So excuse me for thinking about my future here, Colin, because Lord knows one of us has to.
Sheesh, the patronage that you're just hoping, begging for on camera. My goodness.
One day,
All right, so that's overall turnout. Let's talk about the demographics specifically. Let's go into the party demographics. I think what was interesting to me, especially, this is my biggest total takeaway, is that while overall turnout went down, Republican turnout went up 3 points.
Yeah.
A hair over 3 points statewide. I mean, I've got it going up almost 3 points in Chicago, over 2 points in suburban Cook. It's going up 6 points in the collars, under 2 points in the rest of the state. I mean, that's when overall turnout's going down, you can tell why Trump did better when you see that overall Republican turnout did so well in the state in 2024. It also, not to be that guy, but it makes me call into question why we didn't have more gains in Illinois, because we'll talk about it next, Democratic turnout went down.
Well, it's more Republicans showed up, but where did those Republicans actually reside?
I just gave it to you all throughout the
I'm saying
state.
what state rep district or what state
But
senate
it's
district,
the whole state.
right? It's the whole state.
It's the whole state.
Yeah, but if Republican turnout in a congressional district goes up by 3 points and it's Mike Boss district, then does it really
But
matter?
Okay,
you're right,
let's
but
test this theory real quick here. Let's find.
it actually went up less in Mike Boss district.
Sure, I was just saying that as a random example, not that
I get it. You're trying to be Mr. Positive. I understand.
Random
but
example.
Republican turnout went up significantly in the battleground areas, in the suburbs, in suburban Cook. I mean, yeah, and in the rest of the state, it only went up 1.67. I'm doing math on the fly, so don't hold me to that, but it was less than 2. And yet, in the battleground areas, it went up a lot more.
Yeah, and I think that's certainly be problematic for Republicans. I think part of the problem is that Republican demographics aren't exactly perfect. So, yes, these people are modeled as Republicans in our data, but the amount of model Republicans is actually lower than the amount of model Democrats in this state, and there's a lot of model Democrats who are voting for Trump, and it actually proves the point even more that with Republican turnout, who we know are Republicans or we think are Republicans or this robust, you really should be doing better across the board in a lot of these competitive districts.
I've talked to Chris every week for 2 years, and I don't know what the hell he just said. All I know is this: Republican turnout went up, right? Yeah. And as you said, there is certainly crossover votes. Nonpartisan voters are voting R or D. Right. Democrat voters are voting Trump or Kamala Harris, so I certainly get that. But we'll talk about Democratic turnout in a second, but you look at Republican turnout in some areas as high as 92%. How are we, when we have that, there's a segment of the party that keeps saying, if we just maximize Republican turnout, 92% Republican turnout. I'm looking at 79% Democratic turnout. Republicans are showing up to the polls in Illinois. Yeah. We're seeing it over and over. And it's not just, look, 2020, our turnout was 89%, and Democrats were only 81%. And let me go back to the report that we put out 2 years ago, where we talked about Republican and Democratic turnout. Republican turnout only dropped 5 in the collars. It dropped 3 in the rest of the state. And yet Democratic turnout dropped, 22% in Chicago, 16% in Cook County. I mean, I could go on, but for time, I want to move on. The point is, this is the second or third straight election that Republicans have overwhelmingly turned out at a higher margin than Democrats in the state. So this narrative I keep hearing that if we just turn out Republicans, kudos. I mean, clearly Republicans do a good job getting their voters to the polls. So the Bank Your Vote program clearly is working. The efforts by Republican grassroots is working. But there's not much more growth beyond 92% voter turnout. There isn't more space to turn out even more Republicans.
Not in a presidential, but I think there's room for growth in a midterm.
But in that presidential, when we turned out 92%, we still didn't win.
Well, yeah, we're not gonna win president.
But I think
Whoa.
In Illinois.
No, it's not about what he says in a presidential. He's not talking about winning, carrying the state for our guy Donald J. Trump. Yeah. He's talking about winning districts at the same time that Donald J. Trump happened to be on the ballot. Butler, come on, man. And listen, for the record, when I saw some of these turnout numbers in these counties and these regions of Republican turnout being over 90%, I was flabbergasted. I didn't believe it. So I didn't. I mean, we're on number 7 of this document because we checked the data so many times to make sure it was right. Shout out Abe, our data guy. But it's true that Republicans really are turning out to this degree in presidential years in 2024, and they're still lagging behind Democrats in a lot of these key districts. So at some point, yes, our race is about propensity, yes, but we're talking about propensity now. The affinity's also got to come into play here a little bit.
That's the point. We are dominating in propensity. We beat Democrats by over 13 points in propensity in 2024. In 2020, we had beaten them by over 8 points. In 2022, I don't have the numbers exactly in front of me. You can look on our website, but we beat them significantly. This is the 3rd straight election that we have beaten Democrats, and I'm sure maybe it's even happened before then. This is just the data we have in front of us, that we have beaten them on propensity. So clearly, well, I'm sure there's always gains to be made on propensity. I get it. We could always do better. We're winning on propensity. Our problem is affinity. Our problem is that we're not convincing enough independent voters, nonpartisan voters, Democratic voters to vote for our Republican candidates. We are turning our people out, and we're still not winning. By record numbers, we're turning our people out. I think that has to be recognized. All right, I'll move on. Our next topic here, let's talk about the Democratic side because it was an overall drop for Democrats, but regionally it was not the same everywhere you looked. Overall, Democrats, their turnout dropped by about 1.8%. That was bad in Chicago, like 3.5 roughly. In Cook, in the suburbs, it was a little bit under 3. In the rest of the state, it was a little over 2. But here's the kicker. In the suburbs, Democratic turnout went up almost 3 points. That's a huge difference. Statewide, down almost 2. But in the suburbs, up almost 3. That's significantly relevant.
And that's a testament, partially to the Democratic Party's campaign operation, that they're capable of informing their voters, even in a presidential year, to turn out and vote for these candidates. I think another part of the problem is that the suburban demographic that's trending Democratic is much more educated. And that's showing up in turnout because when you're dealing with, Democrats in the city of Chicago, suburban Cook County, or in the rest of the state, you're dealing with a much more working class or lower educational level demographic. In the suburbs, that's completely the opposite. So that's part of the reason why you're seeing an increase in Democratic turnout, and maybe accounts for some of the reasons why Republicans weren't able to make the gains on Democrats in the suburb that they would have otherwise.
Well, one of the other things we've seen in the data, and I'm struggling to find a specific data point that just nails this, that makes it clear. We're seeing it, but we're seeing it in the 2nd or 3rd level of the data, is people who used to be Republicans, who started taking Democratic ballots in 16 or 18 or 20, and then kept doing it. And then suddenly 2 years in a row, or 2 cycles in a row, and 3 cycles in a row, they're pulling Democratic ballots. More up by me and Chris, less by you and by you, Michael. By you, it might be the opposite trend. But we're seeing that these former rock-solid Republicans are now in their 3rd, 2nd, 4th straight cycle of pulling a Democratic ballot in the primary and voting Democrat in the general. That's a problem. People thought, hey, maybe they just don't like Trump or they don't like this candidate. They're going to vote against us one time, but they'll come back home. That's not what's happened. And you see it in this data. When you see that Democratic turnout go up, some of that is former Republicans moving over to the Democratic side and then actively voting every cycle Democratic. That's a problem for us. And we've seen it in the data. Again, we're working on finding some very clear data point that we can publish that just knocks this out of the park and makes it clear to you and obvious to you. But please, trust us, this is what we do for a living. So even without that, trust us that we are seeing this. Even just pulling up an individual voter, you can see it, R, and then suddenly D. All throughout the suburbs, we see that over and over and over.
And part of this, frankly, is because, at least for people like Collin and I, Republican ballots in Cook County usually look like top of the ballot and a bunch of blank spots for judges. that's a problem. And listen, there's nothing you can really do about that if you're the Republican Party in Cook County. But there is something to be said is you want to encourage Republican activity in the primaries. You want to encourage those voters to be active voters. So that's going to be a problem long term. But Colin's exactly right. There is a problem of some people are Democrats because they used to be Republicans. They just don't vote that way anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I know in your region, you're maybe seeing a little bit more of a positive trend. Right. And in our next segment, when we talk through like different counties, we do talk about certain regions where things are going better for us, including your region. So you might be seeing a different dynamic. And I know Democratic turnout, didn't necessarily increase. I'm looking at the numbers in St. Clair County. I see it going down slightly in your county. So, I mean, certainly you're seeing a different dynamic in certain areas like the Metro East. So you can speak to that if you'd like.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, there's certain parts of the state that are seeing the inverse of what the suburbs is seeing, right? Where people that they had historically voted in Democrat primaries, now they're pulling Republican ballots. And like you said, it takes a little while for the data to catch up with that reality, because if somebody's pulled, 10 Democratic ballots in a row, and then the last 3 times they pulled Republican, well, they're probably still modeled as a Democrat.
True. Well, and Chris, I know you talked about out-migration doesn't get picked up on this right away. I mean, you're looking at registration data, you're looking at voter data. If somebody has moved out, they're still registered. And so that's a lagging indicator. We don't necessarily have that straight up in the data, but I know you were talking about that a bit, that you see that out-migration clearly is playing a part of this. And we'll talk about that in the racial section a little bit more. But
right, you kind of took the words out of my mouth there by saying we're going to be talking about the racial thing later. But our out-migration is a problem here for the Democrats, because a lot of Democratic voters, particularly in the Chicago metropolitan area, are leaving the state, or they're just dying and they haven't been removed off the voter roll yet. And now listen, people are quick to claim like voter fraud, they're cooking the books at the clerk's office. I'm not going that far. All I'm saying is that more and more every year, more Democrats are dying or moving out of the state, and they have to continuously make up. And we'll have more to say about this, I think, during the racial poll.
We kind of already covered this, but let's just make sure we didn't miss anything, that even though turnout was down about 2.5 points in 2024 compared to 2020, suburban turnout was actually up overall. And that's something we definitely need to talk about. We talked about it a little bit with the Democratic turnout, but overall turnout in the suburbs was up almost 0.7 compared to the rest of the state. I mean, you look at Chicago, overall was down 5.3-ish. The Cook suburbs were down a little under 5. You look at the rest of the state, it was down more like 2 points. But in the suburbs, you see not a full point, but that's a different trend than we see in the rest of the state. Again, we've covered this a little bit in our previous topics, but it's worth at least mentioning here. Is there anything else worth saying there that you guys didn't get a chance to say about the suburban turnout going up?
It's just something you're going to have to keep an eye on, especially if you're an operative or a candidate or you're a Republican Party in the suburbs. You just have to pay attention to the fact that your turnout is increasing from the cycle to cycle.
Yeah, at minimum, some of these counties are holding strong, some are increasing, but unlike the rest of the state where we've now got, 4 years in a row of decreasing turnout, suburbs actually show an upward trend. So that's absolutely something we're going to have to contend with. All right, let's look at age within this demographic or the demographics of this turnout. We've talked a lot about party. Something that we're seeing a lot in politics is younger demographics obviously are holding decently strong for Democrats. Middle-age demographics, middle-aged voters are moving strongly towards Trump and Republicans. Seniors have been trending more towards Democrats. And what we're seeing in terms of voter participation is those older demographics are holding strong. If we look at turnout compared to 4 years ago, young voter turnout, we see 29 and younger dropped over 6 points, almost 7 points. We look at that 30 to 44, that young professional just about starting your family, that dropped about 3 points. But then you get into that middle-aged 45 to 64 range, and that only dropped less than 2 points, 1.5 in some of these regions and some of these counties. And then senior turnout went up a point. So you look at the older demographics are either holding strong or showing up. Younger demographics, at least in 2024, pulled back a bit.
Yeah, and I think, looking at the city of Chicago's numbers and suburban Cook County's numbers, you're seeing huge decreases in the under 29 demographic and voting. In the city of Chicago, it was, just want to get my numbers correct here, it was just under 8% The people who drop in turnout in the Cook suburbs, it was also just under 8%.
That was almost 10%. Yeah, actually.
Yeah, almost 10% in the Cook County suburbs.
I mean, even in the suburbs specifically, the collar counties, I mean, you see a young voter drop of over 7 points, 7.5. So even those collars who overall went up, the young voter turnout went down significantly.
And, the rest of the state, it's down 3, but that's a stark difference between the suburbs and Chicagoland area. And I think a lot of that has to do with like the Israel-Palestine conflict, is where Kamala Harris never did a good enough job appealing to the younger demographic on the Israel-Palestine issue, in addition to some other issues. But Israel-Palestine first on a lot of voters' minds, and they simply didn't show up at all.
But this isn't new. When we reported on turnout in 2022 after that last election, we talked about how everyone had said it's a surge in young voters. That's why that they avoided the red tsunami, the red wave in 2022. And we reported that turnout amongst voters under 30 had dropped 11 in Chicago, 8 in suburban Cook, 3 in the collars, and then barely in the rest of the state. So this is now the second straight election cycle. We're talking about that same exact dynamic. This isn't young voters rushing to the polls to vote against Trump, to vote for Democrats. That's absolutely not what's happening here. And so you have to question then, why are Republicans not making gains? If young voters aren't showing up in droves, if female turnout grew slightly but not by a huge percentage, then why are Republicans losing? And that's why we talk about it's those voters we've always counted on, the seniors especially, who've turned significantly against Republicans. Like, it's those demographics that have been with us for as long as I was involved in politics. Over the last 4 or 6 years, they have flipped, and we haven't figured that out as Republicans.
Well, that's why we have to pivot towards, okay, look at the data, and then what demographics are moving in our direction that we need to focus on and do outreach to, because you're not getting that, senior citizen vote at the same rates that we used to get.
Yeah, I mean, we absolutely have to run a much more targeted approach with our politics and get to those demographics that have gone against us. Religious voters have gone against us. Seniors have gone against us. We are gaining significantly amongst middle income, middle age, middle educated, I'm making up a term, but like in that range, we're gaining huge, and especially lower educated. But the problem is some of the demographics that we used to just rely on. Go to churches and turn them out and we'll win. Go to seniors and turn them out and we'll win. That game has completely changed.
I'm sorry, I got a comment on the go to church and we win things. I hear that every cycle. It's like, the church going types, they ain't voting. Butler, does anybody at your church not vote?
But here's the problem. So one of the first jobs I had going way back to 2006 and 2005 when I started in politics was doing outreach to churches for congressional races. And back then, you just had to register them and show them up. They voted Republican. Yeah. The problem now is when they vote, over 50% of them, and in some cases over 60% are voting Democrat. So that's part of our problem, is demographics have changed, and yet some of our politicos and our consultants are still the same people from the 2000s who are running campaigns like it's the 2000s, but demographics have changed significantly since then. All right, let's talk about our last one here. Chris is our expert at racial politics. So I want to pass it to you to talk about this. I'm seeing throughout the ethnicity demographics, white turnout held almost strong. It was a drop of less than a point, about 0.8 or so. But you see Hispanic, Black, Asian turnout, other turnout all dropped significantly.
So for many years, people had always written off a decrease in Black turnout for the Democrats as saying that, well, the Hispanics, they're moving into the country, they're becoming citizens, they're becoming voters. They'll keep voting they'll vote Democratic also, and that will save the Democratic Party from any losses they might have amongst population with Black voters. That's not happening. In fact, Democratic politicos have basically forgotten how to turn out Hispanic voters for some reason, which is amazing because they have such a stranglehold on Latino politics in the city of Chicago and the suburbs. And yet they can't turn these people out. You saw in Cook County, there was almost not in Cook County, in the city of Chicago, there was almost a 10-point drop in Hispanic turnout in the city of Chicago. Among Black voters, it was over a 6-point drop in Black turnout in the city of Chicago. So part of the reason why you're seeing decreases in turnout in the city of Chicago and suburban Cook County is because the main demographic groups of those areas, Blacks and Hispanics, they're not showing up to vote anymore. And part of it is they don't live here anymore. Black voters are moving out of state. They're moving to Indiana. Hispanic voters are moving to the suburbs. And the ones that are left might not be citizens, and the ones who aren't voting at the same clip.
Well, we've talked about there are sort of two different profiles of Hispanic voters. You've got sort of that traditional Hispanic voter who is a bit more moderate, socially conservative, who's trending more Republican. They voted Paul Vallis in Chicago. Then you have that progressive, younger Hispanic, but we're seeing that younger progressive Hispanic is not turning out. And that more traditional Hispanic who is more willing to vote Republican and vote conservative is coming to the polls at a higher clip.
And part of this is like a genuine trend amongst Hispanic voters to the Republican Party. They're like Collin,
Or at least towards Trump. Maybe not towards the Republican Party.
You're seeing that.
A little bit towards Republicans, a little bit more towards Trump. We got to do more work to get them to come towards Republicans, is my point.
100%, because they're not just going to vote Republican willy-nilly. But part of the Hispanic movement to Trump is genuine. Working class, socially conservative, union households, that sort of thing. Part of it is just because they're not showing up. Yeah. So like when the Democratic, like the loose Democratic voters of the Hispanic demographic don't show up, the Democratic Party's share of the vote takes a hit. Same thing with the black demographic. People were talking about how well Trump did amongst black men. And a lot of that's true, that Trump did improve with black men. It's also because not a lot of black men show up to vote. They just didn't show up.
There's almost a 20-point gap between white turnout and Hispanic and black turnout. I mean, that's massive.
Right, and it's an advantage, frankly, for the Republican Party to some degree, because, listen, I've been hearing for a very long time that the day is going to come when the Republican Party is going to win black voters. I'm here to tell you that's just not going to happen.
It's focused more on Hispanics.
You have a better chance amongst Hispanics. But here's the thing. With black turnout decreasing and of that share an increase amongst Republicans, you do have an opportunity in this state because of demographic trends in one direction, okay? I also just want to touch on briefly, Asian turnout pretty high compared to Hispanics and black voters. You know, we're talking about 65% Asian turnout, which was
62. Were you talking about in the city or just total?
My bad, I was looking at the city. You're looking at 62% Asian turnout. That's higher than both black and Hispanics. So Asian voters, they're going to be around for a while, okay?
And that is a growing power block in politics in Illinois for sure.
They're making Representative Han Win, I believe is how you pronounce his name. He's making a play for the 9th Congressional District. Obviously, Raj is going statewide for U.S. Senate. Another demographic Republicans can and should do better with is the Asian demographic.
The only thing that kills me is that we just lump so many different types of voters under Asian when an Indian voter votes much differently than
Chinese.
Yeah. But we just call them all Asian voters and move on.
That's right.
Yeah. Anyways, so you see opportunities here for sure, but if you look at that turnout, I mean, we talked about the suburbs, white turnout in the suburbs up over 2%, and we're not doing great with white suburban voters. So you say that overall turnout being more white than average used to help us. That's the problem. 4, 6, 8 years ago, white turnout being this dominating, we'd be winning every race. Yeah. But Republicans are losing ground amongst demographics that we used to win, and white suburban voters is one of the demographics we used to do very well with, that now we do not do well with at all.
White voters in the city of Chicago went down, and you probably do better amongst some white voters in the city of Chicago than you might think. Suburban Cook County, white voters in suburban Cook County also down. There's a difference. White voters in your area, probably not. Probably that's a good thing that they didn't show up. White voters in my area, you probably want white voters to show up. So there's a little bit of give and take here in the racial numbers, but it is to say that there are some underlying racial trends which could benefit Republicans. With Hispanics, it's outreach. With Asians, it's outreach, and with white voters, it's persuasion.
Yeah. All right. So all the data from part 1 and now here from turnout in part 2. We're going to bring it all together in part 3 and talk about which districts, which counties we should be playing with, or playing in, maybe not playing with, in 2026. It's going to be all holds barred. We're going to have some fun in this next phase. So let's pour another drink. Let's have some fun. Okay. The whiskey bottle's starting to empty and the rubber's hitting the road in this section here as we talk about which districts, which counties we should be focusing on as Republicans in 2026. Now, the caveat, if you live in a county where we say it's a cut county, we shouldn't be spending time there, it's not personal. It's a statewide look at where there's gains in 2026 and where there's probably not gains. You're still going to fight in your county, and you should. So this is not to disparage your hard work to date or the time you're going to spend over the next year and a half. This is a statewide podcast. It's to help us identify where there's opportunity. So if you live in a district that we're saying is a cut, if you live in a county that we're saying is a cut, and you're like, screw them, I'm going to fight, good. Please, fight. We need more fight, not less, in the Republican Party to get out there and go get some wins. But we do need to look at the data to identify, based on trends, based on how the numbers looked in 24, how did our candidate do, how does the turnout look? That's going to tell us where we need to go in 26. And so we're going to have some fun with it. We've got kind of like a sports theme here: start, bench, cut. Which districts, which counties are we going to start? Which ones are we going to bench? And which ones are we going to cut? Each of us got a chance to pick 4 in each of those categories. So we're going to go through these one by one. We're going to have a little fun. Spoiler alert, every time I make a pick, it's right. Every time Chris makes a pick, it's wrong. Michael's pretty smart, so he'll be about 50-50. But we're all going to just agree that Chris is wrong, right? We're good with that? Michael's on board?
I disagree.
It's a democracy, 2 against 1.
Oh, God, democracy. Since when is this company a democracy, Colin?
matter.
I want this written in my contract that we can vote, override your decisions with a majority vote. I want my contract. I'll be calling my attorney after this recording.
You can't afford an attorney.
Oh, listen, I got attorneys, buddy. You know how many judge races you've had me run? I got attorneys.
You know how many judge races he's lost?
Oh,
That's the thing.
yeah.
Still
'Cause
attorneys.
you got a record of winning down there, eh, Butler? Yeah.
You think they like you more than me? Come on now. This is a benevolent dictatorship, and I'll just throw the hammer when I need to.
Hey, money's money. They still get a cut even if they represent him against you and they win.
Fair. And they win is the key.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into it. I'm going to take the first one here. We're going to start congressional, then state senate, then state rep. So it'll flow a little weird here, but it's easier for you to follow. It's more confusing for them, but that's kind of fun. So let's just see if we can confuse them as we go. We'll start in Congress. My first start district, aisle 17. So as we look at the potential opportunities in the 17th district, go ahead, you can pop that up. We got Vanna White here, my gorgeous wife. All right, that's my first start district. I'm looking at 17, and yes, I know our last candidate underperformed, and he did so badly. However, we can recruit a better candidate. We need somebody who has ties to labor. We need somebody who's got ties to working families, who's going to run on a good message instead of focusing on crime when no voters actually care about crime. There's opportunity in this district. I'm looking at the baseline here. I mean, listen, we look at the trend too. Since 2016, what does the trend look like? And this district is trending in our direction. It's going to play closer to D4 in 2026. So I'm not saying that we're the odds-on favorite here, but if we're going to get any wins in the congressional races, it's the 17th. Anybody disagree?
I think that's unanimous that this is, congressional side, best pickup opportunity.
I mean, Chris had this district as a bench. So while I believe you're right, Michael, Chris, why are you wrong?
Listen, I think that this district kind of needs a little bit of a restart, okay? We've had 3 straight cycles where this was kind of like, we're going to pick up this district, okay? We went through, 2020, almost won it, barely lost it. Different map. 2022 and 2024. I think we kind of need a restart here. Doesn't mean don't find a good candidate. Doesn't mean don't invest money. But I don't think 2026 is going to be where we're going to say we're going to put all of our energy here to see what happens.
Listen, I'm just looking at the trend here, which would be really hard for Lane to put up on screen. So I'll just tell you visually. Like if I look at 2016, it was D5. 2020, it was D3. If you go 2018 to 2022, that's from D8 to D1. Trump only lost it by 4. Overall, you bring all those numbers in, that trend line is slightly in our favor. We've got a lot of districts we're going to talk about where that trend line does not look good for Republicans. This is one of the few where the trend line, even in the Trump era, is actually going towards us by about 2 points. And so, again, if you look at districts that are potentially in play, I want to look at that trend. Is it moving our direction? All things considered, even with McGraw's underperformance, this trend line's going our way. I don't know. I'm pretty confident looking at that start. We got to focus on aisle 17. Let's find a good candidate. We'll run a good race. Will we win? The data says it might be tough, but if we could get this thing within 2-3 points, again, 28, 20, 30, we could pick up this seat, which would be great going into redistricting. All right, let's go to our next one here. Chris, I'm going to go to you. You've got some federal races you were focused on. You've got an interesting start as your first start. What do you got?
I got starting aisle 8. Here's why. I think there are enough factors going into 2026. You had an impressive performance by President Trump in his district. Did he win it? No. But for many years, many people have said, once Raj is gone, this district's in play. And I think they were thinking about it from the wrong perspective. They were thinking about it from the perspective of, this district has a lot of northern Cook County, very suburban. Raj is going to be gone. We're getting out of the Trump era. Maybe then this district can be in play. I'm looking at it a completely different way. This is a diverse district. Hispanic, Asian, white working class. Does have some true suburban areas. Collin lives in this district, you can tell. But I think we got to start somewhere. This is a fresh start in ILA, trending in the right direction, demographically, and with President Trump. I think you run a full-fledged campaign here, 2026, you could make some things happen.
Michael, you and I had this as a bench. Any thoughts as to why you had it as a bench?
I think it's just a unique dynamic. I mean, Raja's leaving, so that does create some opportunities, but I think we need to see how it plays out this next cycle before we make that jump.
But
I wouldn't start the cycle out saying, that this is something that we need to invest in.
That's why we have it as bench. We don't have it as cut. Listen, if Raja was still in this district, I think, Michael, I would have had it as a cut. You probably would have had it as a cut. Because you look at the trend line in this district, going back to 2016, we're looking at D8, D10, D10, D11. Trump did decently well. He only lost it by 7. But the trend line here is not in our favor. The only reason why I moved it up from cut to bench was the fact that Raja is vacating. But I wouldn't put it as high as start.
Nothing to do with the Trump performance in this district. You, in an earlier part of this episode, you had talked about the impressive performance of President Trump in this district. Okay? I think that needs to be taken into consideration. I agree with Michael. You got to see where this district goes. Why not start with our best foot forward?
I will give you that Trump did overperform by 3 in the district, which was a surprise. So it's what moved me to bench. And maybe you're right on start. We'll see. But it is an intriguing district for sure. We got to find a good candidate and run a good race. That's for dang sure. Yeah. All right, Chris, you had more federal races, so we'll stick with you. You've got your next bench district here.
As we talked about earlier, IL6. This is a district that actually, people had thought this would be a better performing district in midterms and presidential years. Right now, it's not performing that way. Yeah. Right now, it's performing like this might be a better presidential year district than it is a midterm district, and that's why I have it at bench.
You lose about 3 or 4 points in an off year, sadly.
Right. So I think 2026 still got to run like you said with ILA. You still got to run a race. Still got to run a good candidate. Okay. But you're not going to pick it up in 2026. I think Caston's got some ambitions. I don't know how long he's going to be in this district, okay? So you see that and you think, okay, looking forward to 2028. See what happens then. Certainly still got to, like I said, still got to put your best foot forward a little bit. Run a race in 26, but you got to put this one on the bench just for now.
Yeah, I mean, I see this playing like a D7 or D8 in 2026. So probably out of reach unless we have a national wave in our favor, which, I mean, could happen, but right now it doesn't look like it's going to happen. But I could agree with it being in a bench. I think you agree with that too, Michael. All right, Chris, you've got one more federal race you wanted to talk about. What do you got?
Look, I got back to back for Chris here to start. You're getting a lot of Chris early here. Aisle 13, listen. Aisle 13, we're done here, okay? Maybe when Nikki Baczynski's gone, you might make another shot at it. But unless you're some, one-track-minded person at the NRCC who only cares about the number of this district and thinks, wow, that was Rodney Davis' district. Why aren't we winning here, guys? You're not paying attention to aisle 13 anymore.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the incumbent very much overperforms in this district. As you said, the underlying numbers aren't as bad for us. So if Baczynski ever vacates that district, it actually isn't that awful for us. But while Baczynski's in there, I mean, this is going to play D10 at best for us.
I think the one thing on this one that I would say is kind of unique is that it's very east versus west, where on the western side we're doing better, and Granite and Caseyville and the Madison County parts of this district, it's that eastern side that's the problem. So maybe in the future, if we can shore up some of that Champaign County kind of area and improve, then we get this a little closer. Yeah, and maybe it moves up. Maybe it moves from cut to bench at that point, but it's not going to be a start for a long time.
Yeah, certainly not in 2026. Yeah. So, all right, that's our congressional rankings. If the races aren't in that The ones we talked about, they're all cuts. We're not even talking about them at this point. We can talk about some of those districts here just so you guys have an idea of what those numbers are, because there actually is one bench. I was wrong. IL 14 is a bench, not officially a cut. The problem is it does play slightly less favorable for us in off years. This is going to play a bit like a D7 or a D8 district in 2026. So with Underwood in there, the hope was she would vacate. With her still in there, it's going to make this really, really difficult. Not a cut, but it is a bench. However, when Underwood vacates, because clearly she has some ambition here, that 14th district is going to start to look pretty good because it is only a D5 officially district, but in 26 it's going to play a little worse than that. We've got cuts for the 10th, we've got cuts for the 11th. The 10th is trending badly for us every cycle. It's a D16 district at this point, which will probably play closer to D20 or D22 in 2026. D11, this district just hates Trump. It's just the reality, and as a result, they hate the GOP. Maybe a good candidate could get closer to the baseline, but while this is a D7 district, it's going to play like D11 in this next cycle, so we have it as a cut. That's our congressional rankings. Let's move to the state Senate. I'm going to start us again on state Senate. Listen, it's no secret. The Senate Republican caucus has 4 high-profile hold districts that they absolutely must hold. These are the biggest races. Frankly, all 4 of them are about the biggest races in the whole state, which you heard us talk very little about the Senate Republicans last cycle because they didn't have very many races up. But as we look at the House races, a lot of those districts have trended against us in an off year. We kind of missed our chance in 2024 for the House races. So really, all eyes on the Senate in 2026. So I'm going to pick one of the 4, which is Senate District 41, that I'm going to put up as a start. This is representative of all 4 of those whole districts, 41, 26, 24, 33. All of them are start districts and all of them are huge for us. But the reason why I have 41 is some of the underlying numbers here I think are worse than people realize. John Curran is well known. He's well liked in that district, but you got to know that that's a D2 district. The trend does not look great for us over the last 8 to 10 years. That trend has not looked great for us in that district. Without John Curran in that district, it would play as bad as a D8 or a D9. That's how bad it is, which is actually worse than Darby Hill's district. It's worse than Seth and Don DeWitt's districts. Of the 4 districts, the underlying numbers are actually the worst in John Curran's district, even though Trump does a tad better than he does in Senate District 26. But Curran always overperforms. He's well liked there. He's going to put that district in play and give us a great chance to hold on to it. But my goodness, I mean, all of these districts, 41, 26, 24, 33, we're going to have to fight hard to keep them. But people don't realize how tight 41 is and how much focus is going to be put on that race for Curran to keep his seat.
You know, it's really a tale of 2 districts moving in different directions that make up that Senate district. You got House District 81, which is the Aaron Porter district that we discussed earlier. That's, you know, people think it could be in play. Ann Stauffer-Murray is a terrible incumbent, but it just keeps moving further and further to the left. Down ballot Republicans overperform, but it just keeps moving. And that's where a lot of the leftward trends in the district come from. Then you got Nicola Ha in House District 82, overperforming a very significant amount. District isn't terribly trending in the wrong direction for us. I think it might actually be trending in the right direction. Yeah. Don't hold me to that. But
listen, if I'm John Curran, I'm just going everywhere with Nicola Ha, everywhere I possibly can, considering how much she overperforms. When we talk about the trend line in that district, you go back to 2016. The makeup of that district back in 2016. So the current map, but going back to 2016, it was R4. Then 2 years later, R2. Then it was D1. Then in 2022, it was D7. Trump lost it by 7. I mean, that's the trend you see in that district. It's moved 11, almost 12 points against us in the last 8 years. So for those who want to say, like, you know, we're making this Trump impact in the suburbs up, I'm looking at the data. In John Curran's district, that's a massive 11 point swing, actually 11 and a half, almost 12 point swing against us in that Senate district. We ain't making this up.
No, I think the next question is whether or not Don Harmon actually cares enough. Because, you know, like you said, just as the Senate Republicans have to hold these districts, Senate Democrats have to pick them up and hold some of their own too. So the question is going to be for Don Harmon, which he's got a lot of problems right now that he's got to worry about on the money front. Is he's got to ask himself, do I want to try and take out Curran, or am I going to spend my money against Darby Hills? Am I going to spend my money against Seth Lewis? Those are the questions he's asking himself.
Yeah, or Don DeWitt, which DeWitt looks a little bit safer. I mean, Seth is beloved in his district. DeWitt has done a really good job building up his name recognition. So obviously we know the top 2 will be Curran in Darby Hills in Senate District 26. Darby being appointed, she's got a lot of work ahead of her, but the Curran district, just look at those numbers. It kind of shocked me, so I wanted to share it with everybody. All right, Michael, let's go to you. You've been kind of off the board a little bit here. Let's get your first start.
So my first is Senate District 48, which is Doris Turner. It's in that Springfield area. That is definitely, I believe, a pickup opportunity for us on the Senate side. If you add the vote totals from the 2 state reps that make up that district, cumulatively, there's more Republican votes there on the state rep side than there are Democrat, which is a good sign. And also, 4 years ago when Sandy Hamilton won, she came very
close when she ran, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at that district, I'm just going to give some numbers here. I mean, here's the only challenge, is it does play a little less favorably in off years, which is the only thing I don't love. And so even though it is a D1 district, it's going to play more like D3 or D4. So that's the only concern, is it being an off year. That's one of the districts that does play a little worse in off years for us. That said, D3, D4 is not insurmountable. Absolutely. And this is definitely our best pickup opportunity on the Senate side. So I think, Chris, you agree too, that this being a start is 100% accurate.
100% accurate. The only thing I'll say is that, to Michael's point around the state rep performance, a lot of that has to do with, I think this is Mike Coffey's district is in this Senate district. Mike Coffey overperformed by a lot. Really good state representative. Democrats are not going to care about Mike Coffey for a long time. So a little bit of misleading information there, I must say. But overall, I agree with Michael. This is the start. This is where we're starting.
I agree, but that also shows that there's some people that are splitting their ticket there, right? And voting for Mike and then voting for a Democrat for state Senate. So how many of those people can you get to vote a straight ticket on these 2 races?
Sure. It's a fair point. Michael, I know since we've left you so long before you've gotten a chance to talk, let's go to your next one. You've got another start here.
Yeah, Senate District 36, that's Michael Halpin. That one has been one that the Senate Republicans have had their eye on. They're heavily, looking to play in that race. We'll see what happens.
There's been some drama in the candidate recruitment, so we got to figure that out. But you're not wrong. This is absolutely the second best pickup opportunity. I'll be fair, though. Both Chris and I had this as bench, not start. Chris, why did you have it as bench but not start?
I believe I had it as start, Collin.
I'm just looking. I've got it right in front of me. But either way,
Frankly, pretty sure I remember saying.
You were right on the edge there, man?
No. I remember looking at the spreadsheet that we were working on.
The peer pressure of the moment.
No. There was no peer pressure. There was no peer pressure. I looked at this and I said, why is Collin putting this as a bench, man? Like, that doesn't make sense to me. I think that this is, we're talking about Senate District 48. That's definitely number 1. This is right behind Senate District 48.
And you're not wrong. So the trend is going in our direction. It was D6 to D7, 8 years ago. Now it's more, Trump lost it by 5. In 2022, it was only D2. I mean, the trend here is definitely in our favor. The only problem I've got with it is it does play less favorably in off years. So it's a 1 or 2 points worse in off years, and the incumbent does overperform, but he's made some real bad votes. So listen, I'm making a bet on this as a bench. Like I'm gonna fight on this one, but it definitely isn't as favorable for us as the Doris Turner race. I mean, it's gonna play more like a D5 versus Turner's race was gonna be 3 to 4. So it is a little bit less favorable, but it is our number 2 and I believe, are really our only other potential pickup opportunity. So I'm spending time here if I'm the Senate Republicans. I'll be clear about that. Like, if we can find the right candidate to win that race, and we'll talk about that in a future SFR because there's some conversations to be had. Michael, let's just stick with you. You got a bench here to add. Go for it.
Yeah, I had Senate District 57, which is Chris Belt. That's my backyard. There were 2 main reasons why I had this as a bench. First of all, we talked about it earlier in the video, but Kevin Schmidt's overperformance. So I feel like maybe there's an opportunity there to kind of shore up some more votes in the 114th side of that district, try to close that gap a little bit. And the other thing was that I felt like Chris Belt has a lot of vulnerabilities, both on his voting record and some of the personal things in his background. So I think it's kind of there on the periphery. I don't know that it's something that this cycle we're going to be able to flip, but I could see this moving up to the start category in the future.
So Chris agreed with you, but I think you're losing your mind. I think you've got local bias here a little bit. Let me just give some of the numbers. You're right that the district is trending towards us, but let's be clear, even with the trend, it was D15 a decade ago. It's more like D7 now, but Trump lost it by 11. I mean, I'm seeing this district play like D13 in this cycle. I'm not spending money in a D13 district when I've got 4 holds and 2 pickups that I got to worry about. And so, while I love you and respect you, I think you're out of your mind on this one, that this is a cut for sure. You're right that Belt has some vulnerabilities, but I got to tell you, I mean, Belt overperforms. The data I'm looking at, he beats the baseline every election. So while he may have some things you could use against him, his district likes him.
Look, I'm going to defend Michael here a little bit. I think he's pretty spot on in terms of his philosophy of this district because, like you said, it was D15 a decade ago. Now it's D7. Okay, so we gotta start. I mean,
where are you gonna find the money for this?
That's why it's on bench, Collin. It's on bench means like you're a member of the team, but you're not getting paid the big bucks. I mean, that's what the philosophy.
So you are the bench. Are you just standing up for yourself? Then is that the idea here?
Listen. I am a starter. I
need more whiskey, Lane.
Value add to your company, Collin, and you know this. So what I'm saying is that was bench here. You're putting a little bit, by a little bit, I'm not saying, a little bit's not $100,000, okay? Like, that's not...
Any penny spent in this district is wasted. 100% wasted. You don't have the money.
And at any level, you're telling me no money should go into the district at all.
Listen, I'm a cold-hearted bastard. I wouldn't have spent...
You're a cold-hearted bastard. Wait till we get down the list here, buddy.
I wouldn't have spent money on Phil Nangle last time. I wouldn't spend money here. You've got 4 massive holds that are going to be multi-million-dollar races. Curran's hold, Darby's hold, those are going to be $3 to $5 million races. You're going to waste $100,000 on this district?
I didn't say $100,000. I'm not saying $100,000 is the amount of money you spend in the district. But listen, we got the chairman of the St. Clair County Republican Party sitting right next to me. I'm not calling up Derek Murphy and saying, "Hey, Derek, I need $1 million for Senate District 57."
You're just kissing up to Michael.
I'm not saying that, but I'm saying there's other ways we can play in this district. It doesn't make it a start, Collin. It also doesn't make it a cut at the same time. I'm arguing for a district I don't care about. This is Michael's region. I'm fighting harder than he is right now.
Blah, blah, blah. All right, I'm going to do a couple cuts here. So, listen. Seth Lewis is an incredible human being. We had him on the podcast. I love him, and he's going to overperform in his district. I don't think Democrats can take him out. But he tried to convince us that Laura Ellman was vulnerable in Senate District 21. She's absolutely one of my cuts. Let's get it up on the board. Listen, you got to understand that this district is extremely anti-Trump. And while Ellman herself may be vulnerable once Trump is not necessarily a factor, Trump lost this district by 22. And you look at the baseline. Back 8 years ago, it was D5, and then it was D7, and then it was D13, and then it was D20, and then Trump lost it by 22. The trend of this district is awful. It may be underlying numbers say it's D13. It's going to play worse than D20 in this next election. And so while, yes, I'd love to take out Laura Ellman, and as an individual, she's vulnerable, but she's benefited by living in a very, very beneficial district for her. Any dollars spent by Republicans, any minutes spent by Republicans in that district should have been spent in some other district. I'm sorry, I know that's not popular and Seth, I love you, but that district is so far out of play, we are wasting our time even talking about it now. The last one I have in my cut is kind of a unique one. It's a cut, but I have it on the board because I want to talk about it. Let's talk about Senate District 18. So this is a very unique district for the simple reason that it's actually trending towards us. There's a reason why. People have been talking to me. Why is Bill Cunningham on some issues kind of playing a little more moderate? Well, I'll tell you why. Because even though that district plays badly for us in off years, it's actually trending towards us. That district overperforms because he has to, but if you look at that overall trend, Trump only lost it by 8. And the trend started at D14, and it started to inch towards us. And again, Trump only losing it by 8. That tells you why Cunningham has actually been playing a little bit, not on every issue, but on some issues, a little bit more middle of the road. Now, Cunningham himself does overperform. He's rarely challenged, but when he is, he does overperform. So I'm not saying we're going to beat Cunningham, but whenever he decides to vacate that district, this is one of those before redistricting that's kind of sneakily potentially in play. And so while it is a cut right now, wherever I am, when it comes time, if Cunningham ever vacates, if it's up before the next redistricting, it might be one we're talking about. So it's worth bringing up.
I agree, Colin. I mean, this is my backyard, basically. And this is another one of those ancestrally Democratic districts that I talk about. And Bill Cunningham...
Ancestrally?
Ancestrally.
Oh, okay.
Ancestrally.
Okay, yeah.
Like Ancestry.com? Anyway, this is one of those districts where it's like, listen, he's got a good incumbent in Bill Cunningham. You have a lot of city workers in the city of Chicago who are voting for Trump lock, stock, and barrel, but they're also FOP members, and the FOP loves Bill Cunningham. Okay, so this is a district, right? Like the only thing I'll disagree with you on is that you're more likely to get a candidate similar to Bill Cunningham if he decides to vacate this district than you are not going to get a candidate like Bill
But in
Cunningham.
today's Democratic party, they're dumb enough to nominate a progressive.
Sure, but I think
You put Rachel Ventura as the nominee in that district, and a Republican might sneak it out.
if you put Rachel Ventura as a nominee in that district, a Republican wins by 5.
Maybe. Yeah.
But
That's why it's worth looking at. We're not saying 2026. I think Cunningham, by all accounts, is running again. But it's just worth keeping an eye on. All right, some of the other Senate districts we didn't talk about. Michael, we got to talk about Erica Harris. She's in our bench category. That is one of those, the main 4 Republican hold districts, she's like that 4.5. She's like that next one. But the district is trending towards us. If I'm looking at that Senate District 56 numbers.
Trump won that
Yep.
Senate district by what? 1 point?
2 points.
2 points.
And the trend is towards us. It was
She overperformed.
It was D3 back in the day. It's more like R4 to R5 now. The incumbent does overperform. This is going to play more like an R5 district. So it's no disrespect to Erica that we haven't brought you up. It's respect. We think you're a rock star, and you're going to do so well in that district that it's not a place we think we should be spending money. But it's a bench, not a cut. We want to keep an eye on it because if those numbers start to go against us, of course we got to go in there and spend. But right now, there are higher priority districts, and we think of the world of Erica, so we've got her as a bench.
And I think a big key on that is who did the Democrats come up with as an opponent? And then maybe it kind of moves up a little bit on the list, but as of right now, it's looking pretty good.
There's 2 districts that Republicans have as holds, but the incumbents way overperform. Sue Rezin in 38, Wilcox in 32. Those incumbents both overperform solidly. However, here's my only concern. Wilcox's district, I was looking at it, 32, it actually kind of trends against us. We've got some numbers in McHenry County that are not great, which we'll talk about in a little bit. McHenry County's not looking good for us. Wilcox district 8 years ago was an R14 district. Trump only won it by 6. And as the baseline, it's actually closer to 4. We still think it'll play well. It'll play more like an R5, and Wilcox always overperforms, so he's fine. But you look at 32, you look at McHenry County as a whole, it's not looking great for us if this trend continues. So thank God Wilcox is running again. He always overperforms, so he's going to kind of save us from having to worry about that district. Same with Sue Rezin. She always overperforms. Her district's going to be fine, so that's a cut for us. 2 other districts that we have in the list, 23, which is Susie Glowiak Hilton. That's a Dem district. It's trending against us. It's going to play D10. We shouldn't spend money there. Mark Walker in 27. I know Republicans are trying to recruit somebody there. I applaud them for doing it, but it's going to play D17, D18. We shouldn't be wasting resources there. But find a candidate, that's fine. All right, let's move to the State House. Y'all ready? Obviously, there's a lot of districts here to talk about. I'm going to give my first start for the House, mostly because, Brandon, I need to get back in your good graces. So let's talk about House District 104. It's my start. Absolutely needs to be a start. If only because of what we've talked about previously in this video, that some of the numbers in that district aren't looking great for us. The Trump performance was decent, but not amazing. Champaign, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, is really bad for us. And it plays less favorably in off years. And so that scares me a bit. Brandon won by 0.5 point last time. It plays less well for us in off years. And we need this incumbent to be more overperforming like Marin, which I think he has the potential to do, but he's got to do it. Because right now it's going to play like a break-even district. It's going to play right on the margins. This is my top district for 2026 on the House side. We need Brandon to be the rock star that I know he can be, but so far the numbers haven't reached it yet, reached his potential. And the next year and a half, we need him to reach his potential. That's it? Yeah. You guys are good? Yeah. All right. Let's go to the next one here. Who do we have next? We've got Chris. You've got to start here. Go ahead.
Listen, House District 76. I talked about this earlier, as it brings a tear to all of our eyes that we were not able to.
Yeah, I need more alcohol, actually. Yeah.
Make it a double, Colin. Like, you need You screwed me up, Colin, with your alcohol.
I always try to screw. Listen, the problem here is the numbers in the off years are a little bit less favorable.
Right, they are.
So we might have missed our chance, which drives me crazy.
It's interesting. This district is interesting because it looks like a giant. It looks like a giant like backwards L, which is kind of funny in context of what we're talking about here. But it looks like a giant backwards L, and the bottom of this district is like the river towns, and these river towns, white working class. You're talking LaSalle, Ottawa, Union towns, and they're trending to the right for Trump. But then you go up the Panhandle or wherever you want to call it, and it goes all the way up to NIU and into Cal. So like,
which is why let me give the trend here because it's interesting. If you look at 2016, it was more like D8, but in 2018 it was D13. I mean the split between how it performs in an on year versus an off year is like 5 points, which is one of the worst that we've seen. So that's why I'm nervous about this district, is exactly what you're saying, this weird flip that Trump has done to our party where we actually play better in off years or in on years than we do in off years. I'm seeing it almost the worst of any district in this district. That 5-point swing, like you put Liz Bishop back in this district, she runs a good race, Republicans spend more money, they overperform by 3 or 4 points, we might actually lose by a point more because it's an off year. Like that's what's driving me nuts.
right, and I think, as I've stated previously on a number of other districts, the Republican Party needs to get into this mentality that Colin is talking about. He's spot on. I better get a raise for saying that on the record. But like, you got to get in this mentality. There are districts where Trump is helping you, and you got to take advantage.
He lost by 6 points in that district.
Right,
Yeah.
but still, you're losing.
But he only lost by 6 is my point.
We're losing by 6. We're overperforming even in that against a very weak incumbent in this.
And that's the key. Like, I think it'll play D5 because of how weak the incumbent is. Brielle is, not only is she weak as a candidate, but the votes she's been taking since she's been in have been, I don't know who's advising her. Thank God they are. Please keep doing it. Like, if this wasn't an off year, I'd say she's toast. She's lucky that this district plays the way it does, which will make it that much harder for Republicans to win in. But Chris, you're right, this should be a start. And we've got to find some way to beat that off-year blues that we see in this district, because Brielle is absolutely vulnerable.
Have we heard of a candidate in this district yet?
So the other candidate who ran in the primary last time, we're trying to avoid getting too much into the weeds on these races, is running again, the one that lost the primary. But I know Republicans are pushing Liz to do it again. I don't know. But like, it's absolutely, I'm with you. It's a start for sure. I wish the off-year numbers in that district are so depressing. Anyways, I'll move on. All right, let me go back to my list, see who's next. Michael, you got a chance to speak finally. What do you got as your start?
I had House District 66. That's Suzanne Ness. It's looking kind of like a D+4, but she's not a strong candidate herself. She usually, underperforms the baseline. So I think there's an opportunity there.
Yeah, I have this. Trump lost it by 6. It is a D4 district, but it does play a little less favorably in off years. So it's going to play more like a D6 this year. But Ness does not overperform. You're 100% right on that. We've just got to find a good candidate. Our problem last time was not finding a good candidate in that district. I'm with you on this being a start. Our resident grumpiness has this more as a bench. So what's your problem with 66?
Listen, this is more like we were talking about resources earlier, Colin.
But the House Republicans don't have the holds that the Senate Republicans have.
Yeah, but this is our third one we're talking
It's
about.
the third race. You can't. You got 118 districts. You can't even get to your third race.
No, you can't, Colin. Not in this
We're
state.
running out of money already.
That's it. I'm out. That's it. My wife gets her way, and we're moving to Florida. We're done.
Seriously though, I just think, looking at the numbers, I think there's other districts that are more of a priority than 66. Doesn't mean not in the conversation, but I just thought there was other districts.
I don't know is a pickup, or are you talking about holds?
In general, there are more districts that are just more concerning on the hold front and on the pickup front, I think.
I don't know what you got on the pickup front, but you've watched Chris lose his mind live on this episode. All right, let's move to our next one here, because I don't know, Chris just keeps being wrong. So let's let him have his next district on the start side.
House District 47. Again, I thought we were done here. All right, donezo. You want to talk about holds that are more of a priority, Colin? Here's your hold that's more of a priority, Colin.
You mean Republicans actually showing up in 47 this time around?
Yeah.
Not leaving Amy Grant to herself to figure this out?
Winning anyway somehow, but still, we gotta we can't just rely on Amy Grant's sunny disposition to win every 2 years. And that seems to be the philosophy of the party right now. It's like,
Well, here's why you're absolutely right. Let's talk about the trend of that district. That district itself, going back to 2016, was R8, almost R9. Then R7, then R0, then D 4.5. Trump lost it by 10. That's the trend over the last 8 years in that district. Again, we ain't making this up. I've got the data right here. That's what Amy Grant is facing. She massively overperforms, but at a certain point, she's going to need a little help.
and listen, Wheaton, which is most of this district, is not the fundamentalist Christian enclave of DuPage County that it once was, okay? It is a trendy town. And when you become a trendy town, that just means Democratic state rep coming soon.
Yeah, to Chris, trendy is buying a polo that was made in less than 10 years ago, though.
This is Walter Hagen, man. I got this at
Walter Hagen!
Dick's Sporting Goods last year. It was
Dick's!
buy one, get one free.
Do you buy your shirts in crates like Dwight Schrute?
No, listen, man. This is a nice shirt.
I don't know. I think the shirt...
Butler's over here looking like he just got done painting a house.
Butler looks like a 4th of July explosion, and you're wearing tiny little flowers.
Yeah. Well, you got a problem with the flowers, Mr. Black, dress shirt boy? Come on, with blue jeans?
He
What's
dressed
going
for a
on here,
funeral.
folks? Exactly.
This is the funeral of the GOP, but let's...
If he showed up to my funeral looking like that, I'd have him kicked out. I don't know what kind of dress code the funeral.
Maybe you should have given up the cigarettes a decade before, and I wouldn't be going to your funeral at 30 years old.
Forcing me to get back into the cigarettes because you keep having me do these races and you keep having me do these analysis videos.
So I think for your district here on 47, it's like 47 and 52 are kind of the same, right? You're kind of picking one or the other. Both of them are in this category.
I'm a plan trustman, so I don't need to look at how.
No, I get it. But both of those districts are trending against us. And that's the reality we've got to look at. That for both Amy and Marty, they're gonna need help. Both of those districts, the underlying numbers are trending against us. Amy overperforms a lot. Marty overperforms a little. But in both of those districts, the trend numbers don't look great. I already gave you Amy Grant's numbers in 47. Let me give you 52s. It was R12, then R9, then R5, then D3. Trump lost it by 5. This is what we're talking about. That's a 17-point change over 8 years. That's ridiculous. We don't see that in, frankly, most areas of the rest of the country. And so both Amy and Marty, I'm with you. They're starts. We're going to have to give them the help they need to win those races. We cannot. Both of those candidates were abandoned in 24, and through their own sheer will, they pulled it off. Both districts play less favorably in off years. So if you think that's going to happen again, it won't. If you have the same playbook in 26 that you had in 24, both Amy and Marty lose. You have to come in with help for both of them.
I agree.
All right, we're on the same page. All right, Chris finally saw the light. Let's move to, it's me again. Yeah, I get to talk again. All right, Chris is sad from not hearing me speak. Okay, so this is...
You're going to speak for 2 hours now, Collin. 3.
This is a respect pick. I'm putting Kevin Schmidt not in my starts, but in my bench picks. And here's why. While the district is actually trending against us in 114, and let me give you those numbers. In 114, it was trending for us. What are we talking about? Here we go. The district is trending strongly towards us. Let me give you those numbers. D15 to D11 to D2 to R1. Trump only lost it by 1. The numbers are coming towards us, and Schmidt, as we talked about previously in this video, always significantly overperforms. It's going to be an R4 district, I think, this cycle. Kevin will overperform that because he's a rock star. And so as a result, I'm saying I'm sorry, Kevin. Let's move resources elsewhere. Keep pulling it. Keep looking at it. Maybe Latoya runs again. Let's hope for that. But either way, let's keep an eye on it. It's a bench, not a cut. But I have so much faith and trust in Kevin that I'm moving resources elsewhere if I'm controlling the resources for the Republicans. Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
All right.
Look, we don't need HRO in Kevin Schmidt's district. We got Michael Butler and his
It's over. It's over. It's over.
To get Kevin Schmidt over the finish line.
And then I look at, I'm paying Michael to work for free for Kevin Schmidt, and then I kind of wonder, I'm the world's worst businessman.
You could give some of that money to Chris because Lord knows he deserves.
Maybe if we stop giving away our stuff for free, maybe I can afford to pay you more. All right, Michael, you've been sort of quiet for a while. What's your next bench pick?
I had House District 112 as a bench, Katie Stewart.
Does that hurt you a little bit?
Yeah, a little bit. I just, there's parts of that district that are trending away from us, like Edwardsville, and then there are parts that are trending towards us, like Collinsville and Caseyville.
Yep.
So it's kind of a strange dynamic.
Overall, it is going towards us. I'll be clear. So it was D6 to D7. Now, Trump lost it by 8. That's the problem. But the underlying numbers actually put it more like D3. It is going towards us. They just don't like Trump in that district.
Yeah.
Which is weird because I'm pretty sure there was an analysis done that actually had Trump winning the district in 2016. That might have been wrong. Might have been wrong.
That's true.
But the fact that it's moved that far away from that is interesting.
Well, 16 was different.
Well, which is why Michael's right. It should be a bench. I think we all agreed. I mean, look, we all agreed this was a bench. It hurts us. Like Katie she's vulnerable, but it's just that district dislikes Trump so much. It's a bench. We're not ignoring it. It's just not where we're going to put all our resources in 2026. As that Trump effect wanes, whatever that might look like nationally, it's above our pay grade. But as that Trump effect wanes, this district moves from bench to start. Like, Katie is vulnerable. The district is slightly moving in our favor. They just, for whatever reason, they vote against Trump and then they vote against the Republicans down ballot. So, in the future, 112 will absolutely be in play. All right, Chris, we'll all endure your next dumb pick. What's your next bench pick?
House District 97. And listen, this goes into what I've been talking about earlier. Is like there has to be a philosophy of campaign in some of these races, and I think that you're better off you put so much resources into this district in 2024. I think justifiably so to some degree, or I thought justifiably so to some degree. But at the same time, we actually lost ground at the state rep level in House District 97 in 2024. Again, this is a district needs a reboot. Got to start fresh here. I think you're better off starting fresh here in an on year than you are in an off year.
Well, and the problem is, listen, Harry Benton is not the moderate he claims to be, but the voters don't know that.
He's a new kind of Democrat, I understand.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this district, if you look at the trend lines in this district, there are some slightly favorable numbers. It is kind of a little bit going towards us, just a hair. But the problem is it plays badly in off years. It's a 3 to 4 point dog in off years compared to on years, and that's the problem. If we couldn't do it in an on year, I don't see how we're going to do it in an off year. It's going to play more like a D6 in 2026. So as much as it pains me on the record to agree with Chris, I kind of have to. All right, let's go to my next bench. I want to bring up House District 63 for my next bench. And there's a reason for this. Listen, I mentioned it earlier in this video. Steve Reich doesn't overperform as much as some of our other incumbents. As a matter of fact, he overperformed the least of the incumbents in semi-challenged races last time. And the district, weirdly enough, is trending against us. We got to start talking about this. I don't know what's going on in McHenry County. I know that it's a collar county, but it's always been so deep red. But let's talk about the trend in House District 63. From 2016, when it was R10, then it was R5, then it was under R5, then it was D2, and Trump lost that district by a point last time around. Now, because Reich does overperform, not a ton, but good enough, it'll play like an R5. We're fine. That's why it's a bench, not a start. But we've got to start to take a serious look at not just that district, but the surrounding areas, because the trend is absolutely not in our favor. And if Steve were to say, I'm not running, and someone else were to run, suddenly that's a start district that we're trying to hold on to. That's freaking McHenry County. I don't know where this happened, when this happened, how this happened. Maybe in McHenry County we should stop fighting amongst ourselves and start fighting the Democrats, because there's so much damn infighting in the county that the numbers are going badly. For 8 years, they're going badly against us. It's time to get our shit together in McHenry County. And Reich's district in 63 should be a cut, not a bench. But because of those numbers going against us, and because of Reich not overperforming as much as he should, now it's a race we're going to have to pull every couple months just to make sure it doesn't go against us.
Look, I'll tell you, you mentioned you don't know how McHenry County got to this point. I'll tell you, when I first started in Republican Party politics, people talk to me about McHenry County. It's like, a Democrat will never win there. They like their guns too much. I'm like, and then I go up to McHenry County. I'm like, this is basically suburbia at this point. They're developing it. There are people who like getting up every morning at 4 a.m. to get on a metro train to go into the city of Chicago. And that's what you're dealing with here. I'm pretty sure Biden won McHenry County in 2020.
I don't have that number here.
Okay, but I'm pretty sure he did. So that's what you're dealing with here. Listen.
It has changed significantly. And people always said it was Algonquin's fault. It was down towards Lake in the Hills, but it's not just in the southeast portion of the county. We see this in Woodstock. We see even some of this in Spring Grove. We see this in Nunda Township. We see it in Crystal Lake. You see it all throughout the county. It's not just the southeast. Yeah, people need to stop screwing around in McHenry County because that's a county we should be running up the score in. If we can't win McHenry, what are we doing? We're screwed. All right, let's move along here. Michael, you've got the next pick. What's your next bench?
Yeah, I had House District 51, Naibla Saeed.
Nabila Said? Yeah. This one hurts me, but you're not wrong.
Yeah, I mean, she overperforms. It's trending against us. The one reason why I kind of put it in the bench category as opposed to the cut is because it's within that Darby Hills State Senate District. So I feel like it's important. Get a good candidate, duke it out a little bit just to try to, help shore that up. Maybe in the future it's something that's in play, but at the moment, I don't see that.
Chris really wants to talk, but before you do, because I signed the paycheck, let me just give the trend, because Michael's not wrong. Here's the trend of that district. In 2016, it was R9, then it was R5, then it was D0, then it was D10. Trump lost it by 12 and a half, almost 13. That's a ridiculous trend. And so Michael's not wrong that, it has some significant strategic value for us because it's part of Senate District 26. But you look at that House district, Nabila has so many bad votes, I want to take her out. And I live just next to this district, and my wife and I get so many freaking Nabila Saeed ads, I would love to take her out. The data says that's not possible, but Michael's not wrong. There are strategic value. Now, expecting Chris to be able to think strategically beyond more than one level is difficult. He had this as a cut, so let's all listen why Chris wants to just blow away Senate District 26.
You want strategy, Collin. This is my strategy.
I want strategery.
Yeah, I'm giving you screw strategery. This is real strategy. I don't care about your George Bush SNL jokes, buddy. But here's the thing about strategy, folks. When you say that we're going to run a candidate in House District 51, at the same time that Senate District 26 is one of, if not the most in-play Senate district. That what you're saying is you want the Democrats to spend more money, because Lord knows the Democrats got money to blow, especially in the House. Welch doesn't have the problems that Harman does in the Senate with his money right now. So, okay, you're going to run a candidate in House District 51, you're going to throw them a few bucks, and guess what? A few bucks for you is like $2.6 million for the Democrat. You want to talk?
They're not going to. Nabila's got that money, though. The question is, does she move up? We don't know that as of the time of this recording, whether she runs for Senate or for re-election in the House. But what if she vacates? She does overperform. What if she vacates?
I think you got to punt with Senate District 26. You can't.
So just leave a gaping hole.
It's a gaping hole already if you run somebody there, Collin.
But Chris Welch is not going to spend money in 51. He's going to look at these same numbers and say, I don't have to spend money.
Whatever candidate runs in that district is going to spend money if they have an opponent, okay? And the Republican isn't going to spend any money. Freaking Tosio Fudike had like 50 grand left in her campaign account after the election for some reason. We had some money in that district. We didn't even spend it, okay? So I think strategically, you got to punt on 51 this cycle to give the Senate a better opportunity to hold Senate District 26, because if you're doing a race in House District 51, that means the Democrats are running a 5 times better race.
They're not going to put money in this district.
No money for the Democrats is like an ooh and
I need more alcohol. I need more alcohol. All right, let's move along. All right, Chris, I don't know who made this plan that lets you speak next, but go ahead. What's your next bench?
House District 55. We talked about this as
another district Chris is wrong in.
What do you mean district I'm wrong in? You said earlier that you had to run a candidate in House District 55 because it was
in 2024, not in 2026.
Listen, I'm thinking.
Time is not relative. We don't live in a black hole.
Okay, listen, man, you got to read your Heidegger. But anyway, I can't believe that's my 2 years of philosophy education coming out.
See, it wasn't a waste, Chris's mom.
It wasn't a waste of money. It wasn't a waste of money, Cardinal Supich. You got your money's worth. Anyway, House District 55 trending in the right direction for us. This is a district where 55? You literally said earlier this was a district that you got.
No, I said let's be clear, because Chris is giving you misinformation.
Oh, wow. The fake news.
No, Chris is fake news. Here's what is the stats, the actual data. Trump overperformed. He only lost by 7. Not even 7, 6.6. That's what I said. The actual district is trending against us. It was D10, then D11, then D12, and then D16. So Trump massively overperformed. You could ride that wave if you want. But the district itself is actually trending 6 to 7 points against us.
Listen, there is a difference between the trend, like again, there's different demographic factors within this district that'll tell you, like there's demographics that are going to move away from Trump, okay? We're talking about Des Plaines here, we're talking about Park Ridge, so like, yeah, there's a little bit of a difference there that some of those people are going to be moving away from Trump. True, Park Ridge, I've knocked doors there, I know what it's like there, okay? But there's also other factors. There's also working class parts of the district. It's right next to the northwest side of the city of Chicago.
I get it.
It includes parts of the northwest side of the city of Chicago. Trending hard.
But if you look at all the data points in that district, everything's going this way against us, and then suddenly you've got this weird Trump number. If you're a data person and you see one number that looks different than 10 other numbers, you say it's an outlier, not a trend.
Or you test it again, Collin. Or you test it again, Collin.
Instead of helping us win Senate District 26, you're going to go blow some cash against Marty Moylan?
There's a rat's ass about Senate District 26. We're talking about the House here, Collin.
I'm sorry for thinking we should actually play like a team. Forgive me. But Moylan, you are not going to beat Marty Moylan.
No, you're not, but you got to give some... Again, you and I have a different conception of bench here, Collin. This is what we've been arguing about for the past, 45 minutes, okay? You and I have a different perception of a bench. Me, when I say we're moving this up from cut to bench, I'm saying let's see what we can do here.
Cut to watch? Not cut to bench. Okay. Bench, we're actually putting...
We're having a fourth category now, Collin. Fourth category now. We're having...
Bench is resources. You're actually giving it some attention. We're not beating Moylan. This district's not going to play anywhere near enough for us. You have one data point, which was Trump, and you're not going to find Donald Trump to run in House District 55.
What? Watch me.
All right.
We can run like Barron or something.
Chris is challenging.
Presidency laws will get in the way of that one. I already looked into it.
Small detail.
The law doesn't apply. Come on.
You can do whatever you want in politics until you get caught.
Exactly. Ask Don Harmon. All right. House District 68 is my next pick. I'm sick of hearing Chris talk, so I'm going to go next. I've got it as a bench. And here's why. For whatever reason, nobody likes to face Dave Vella, which, okay, fine. He overperforms. I get it. But my goodness, that district is so on the fringe. And I've been saying this for 2, 4, 6 years. Yes, he overperforms, but at some point, Vella's going to move on. And that district itself, the only reason why it doesn't play for us is Dave Vella. Let me give you some of the trends in 68. So it was R2, D4, D3, D3, yes, Trump did badly, so I'll admit that in D7, but it's not one of those districts that's so out of play. With Vella, it's going to play like D7. I get that. But the underlying numbers make that more like a D2. If Vella ever gets out of that district, we've got to go up and play. If we can't win in Rockford, in that region, we're never going to come close to the majority in Illinois. So if Dave Vella is unbeatable, then the Republicans are a permanent superminority. That's the point. If 68 is unwinnable, then we are a permanent superminority. And so while I get it, I'm not putting Vella up in my starts. I'm not going to go put a bunch of resources there. I'd like to see somebody real run in that district, actually start to build up some name rec. Maybe they run for something else in Boone or Winnebago or whatever it might be. But if we don't start playing in that region, we're done. That's my point. And so while it's a bench, it's a forward-looking bench in 68. Anybody have any fight? Anyone want to fight me on that?
No, you're good.
All right. Finally, they see the light. Michael, give us some common sense here.
I had Sharon Chung in House District 91 as the next on my list.
Cut, yeah.
Yeah, cut. And the incumbent, doesn't overperform, doesn't underperform. It's pretty steady.
I get why Republicans wanted to challenge Sharon Chung, because she does, you look at all the data, she actually doesn't overperform.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
But we just haven't been able to get it done, and I don't see that changing in the...
Well, and it also, you look at that district, I've got the data here, it plays worse for us in off years, slightly, but it does, so that's not going to help. Trump lost it by 10. I mean, it's just, there's some of those numbers that just don't really work for us. But in his grand wisdom, because he loves, oh wait, hold on. Oh, that's me, not Chris. I wanted to blame Chris for my choice. I actually had this as a bench, not as a cut. Just because I understand that Trump plays really badly in this district, but if you look at the underlying numbers, they're not that bad. I mean, it was R2 in 2016. I've got it as D3 to D4 in the last few years, other than Trump. Like, Trump kills us in that district, so it's not going to happen in 26. But I would love a forward-looking Republican Party that thinks beyond just 2026, because Trump, yes, kills us in the district, but you remove that factor, Sharon Chung does not overperform. The district is just a little bit Democrat. It's going to play D5, D6 in 26. So assuming Chung runs for re-election, which I think she'll do, we're not going to win it in 26. But could we win it in 28 or 30? We got to get out of the superminority, folks. We have to. So if you're not playing in districts like 91, you're not playing. So I've got it as a bench, but you guys have it as a cut. You want to say I'm crazy? Go ahead.
I'll let you have this one, Collin.
All right.
Go for it.
All right, we'll move along. Chris, you're next. You got a cut you want to add that probably will make you a ton of friends.
House District 45. Look, there's a difference. We talk about overperformance, okay? We talk about overperformance a lot here. And yes, Collin and I argued about overperformance the first time we brought up House District 45 during the course of this episode. I think that you need to get to a point with the Republican Party where you're not relying just on the fact like Elmhurst, Oak Brook, Hinsdale, Republicans do better down here, and you overperform. But you got to get to a point where you're back putting this district competitively. This district really wasn't competitive at all in 2024. It just wasn't. So you got to look at that and say, we talk about resets. This is you got to take a break on House District 45. And that sucks. That sucks because you barely lose it in 2022. Then you spend a lot of money in a race in 2024. It ends up not being competitive at all. And I think you got to test the wins a little bit here. But where things are at right now, I don't see House District 45 as a priority or even a secondary priority going into 2026.
Listen, you've got it as a cut, and I understand why. Michael and I had it as a bench, maybe because we don't necessarily want to take it to that extreme, but I will admit you may be more right than we are on this one. If you look at the trend lines, it was R3, then R2, then D2, then D10. Trump lost it by almost 13. We spent a lot of resources there and lost it by 8 last time. And the overall trend says it plays a little bit less favorably in off years. I had this as a D8 or D9, even though the underlying numbers are D3, which is why Michael and I have it as a bench, not a cut, because the underlying numbers say we haven't lost this district permanently, but in the era of Trump, we kind of have. It's going to be D8, it's going to be D9. You could spend millions if you want. You're not going to win it. So long term, I think the district is a bench. Short term, Chris is right. It's a cut. I'll give you that one. The problem is, I think we missed our opportunity. I mean, the House is in this position where a lot of our best opportunities in the state House were in 24, not in 26. 26 Republicans in the House level are almost exclusively going to be playing defense, which is kind of depressing. All right, what's our next one here? Let me pull up our list. Oh, it's me. I've got a cut. Let's talk about House District 42. The only reason why I'm even bringing this up is as much as I love some of my friends in the DuPage County area who are really saying, oh, we've got a great candidate in 42, I've got to give some reality just statewide. If you live in that region, if you live in that district, okay, fine. Play in 42, that's fine. But let's just look at the reality of 42. It was D5, then D8, then D13, then D19. Trump lost it by 21. We absolutely cannot be spending time, money, resources in 42. I understand. Tara Costa Howard ticked off a lot of people actively. I mean, she was actively pissing people off. I don't know what her strategy was there.
She can.
Maybe it's because she's safe. I mean, the homeschoolers should go after her. Republicans, she deserves to be held accountable. And if she was in a break-even district, she'd get her butt whooped. But she's not. She's in a district where Trump gets demolished, and because of it, Republicans get demolished. It's a D13 district that plays more like D19 or D20. It's not going to happen. We just got to be honest. It ain't going to happen.
Look, I said before in relation to the homeschool issue is that you have to put your money where your mouth is at some point. And if the homeschoolers want to make an issue out of that bill and take out Tara Costa, and try, keyword there, try and take out Tara Costa Howard, go for it. But I would need to see a pretty significant overperformance by the candidate in order to say, like, this was a good use of time and resources, because I don't see it. Maybe 15 years ago, this was more of an in-play district.
Not even 15, 8 or 10 it was, and maybe some point in the future, but the Trump effect, listen, in some parts of the state it helps us, in some parts it hurts us, and in this part of the state it kills us. All right, Michael, you've got a cut. I didn't even have this on my list because I just thought it was common sense. Why are we even talking about this district? But you had it as a cut, so tell us about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think people have kind of like flirted with it a little bit the past couple of cycles. It's House District 96, Sue Shear. But you look at the baseline, I mean, this last cycle, it was what, D plus 14? So that's pretty rough.
Trump lost it by 16.
Sue Shear, overperformed slightly. I just don't see you getting within 10 points in this district, even with the rock star candidate.
I mean, that's the reality is in some of these districts, you see incumbents that do really, really well and then just do okay. Sue Shearer just does okay.
Yeah.
The problem is her district is favorable, so she's going to get away with it. I mean, Trump lost it by 16, and the trend line, it's holding steady a little bit, maybe even a hair kind of in our direction, but
You lost it by basically 17 points.
it ain't happening. And honestly, I mean, I was with you. I had some good friends who I love who watch our podcast who were like, look at our candidate. We're 96. We're going to win it. And then I was like, listen, I love you, but that's not accurate. And then it's not accurate. So I didn't even have it in my list, to be honest. So Michael, yeah, you're right. It's a straight up cut, as much as it shouldn't be. Scherer is not a strong incumbent, but that's how politics works. All right, let's go to our next one here, which is Chris. Go ahead.
To close out the House districts here, I don't really have a bombastic rant for this one. House District 81. I gave credit to Big Tent Coalition to Mozinga for running a full race with Aaron Porter this time around. Spent a lot of money, but listen, I hate Anastasia Murray as much as the next guy. You're not beating her anytime soon.
She underperforms.
Yeah, she does.
And that's the problem. We look at it in a vacuum, which is why we do this podcast in this episode. Because if you just look at, oh, wow, that candidate is so bad. And she is. Stava Murray is so bad. But the district they're running in matters.
They don't care. They don't care that Anastasia Murray is that bad. I mean, they do a little bit because that's why you see.
But they vote D.
Right, they're just voting Democrat.
I mean, that district was D5, then D7, then D11, then D19. Trump lost it by 21.
Just ask Dick Durbin what he thinks of her, though.
Well,
Because she was like, I want to run against you.
But that's the point. She's a horrible candidate. Yeah. But that district hates Trump so much. She significantly underperforms, but it's still, right now in the Trump era, so blue.
If we were back in like the D5 category district and stuff, I mean, I think she was winning even then, because that shows how terrible we are at this sometimes. But like, but if you were back in those days, D5, yeah, you're going to spend some money against Anastasia Murray. You're not doing it anymore, guys.
Yeah. All right, let me do some of the House districts we didn't talk about. I'll do this very quickly. There's a reason why we didn't bring up Jackie Haas, Jennifer Santilitro, Mike Coffey, Dan Ugasti, Jeff Kiker, Nicole Laha, Brad Stevens. Those are all whole districts, but for various reasons, they're cuts, and they're not even cuts we're talking about. We talked about it. Jackie Haas, Jennifer Santilitro, overperformed. Mike Coffey, overperforms. His district's to be more like R12. I'm not worried about it. Dan Ugasti overperforms. It's going to be an R9 district this next election. Jeff Kiker, he doesn't overperform as, well, actually he does overperform strongly. That's going to be an R12, we think, this next election. Nicole Laha overperforms. That'll be an R12. Brad Stevens, I just want to point out House District 20. That district's actually trending towards us. Everyone always told me that only Brad Stevens will only ever hold that district. And he's done great, let's be real. But surprisingly, that district's actually coming more towards Republicans, which is great. It's going to be more like an R5 district this time. He's fine. Some of the other districts that are held by Democrats that were cuts, but I just want to bring up really briefly, Larry Walsh Jr., his district is moving strongly towards us. The problem is Walsh significantly overperforms, and so while he's in it, it's going to be more like a D17. But the underlying numbers are more like D67. That tells you how much Walsh overperforms, but it also tells you, if you look at the trend line, that district is moving every election cycle a couple points towards us. So if Walsh ever vacates 86, it might be one worth talking about. Do you agree?
Listen, Larry Walsh Jr. is a great candidate. He's got a great campaign team. That district is trending in the right direction. But, Larry's the only person who, this time where everybody, all the Democrats after the 2024 budget was like, we're never doing this again, guys. This was the worst budgeting process ever. And then they did the same exact thing, if not worse, this time. And Larry was one of the few people who said, I'm still not doing it, guys.
There's some other districts that are trending towards us. Mary Gill in 35, Rick Ryan in 36. Both of those districts are trending towards us, but they're going to play D15 this next election, so we're not playing now. But it's just worth mentioning that 35 and 36 are actually going our way. Maurice West in 67, Anthony DeLuca in 80. Both of their districts are going towards us, but West district's going to play like a D13. DeLuca is going to play like a D10 at the baseline. We're not going to win there in 2026, but I just want to make sure on the record we mention it because there are some of these districts that at the moment are over here. They might start coming into play in the next couple cycles. Another district going towards us is Diane Blair Sherlock in 46, but the problem is she overperforms. It's going to be a D11, D12, but at some point soon it might play in our favor. Another district here, 49, Maura Hirschauer. Her district is holding steady and she doesn't actually overperform. The baseline is D10. She kind of plays more like D9. So in 26, D9 is not enough to play in, but it's definitely worth looking at. Then you've got districts going against us. Mussman in the 56. That district's, maybe we can beat the baseline because Trump actually overperformed there. He only lost by 11. It's D17, but it's not worth talking about right now because of those numbers. Joyce Mason's district's going against us, even though she's really not liked in her district, but Trump is also really disliked. So that's going to play more like a D13, D14. 53 and 54, our districts, and my wife and I, we live right there. I wish we could play there, but Trump's so disliked, it's just not going to happen. 53 is going to play like a D15, D16. 54 is going to play like a D18, just not going to happen. Last one is District 41, Janet Yang Rohr. It's a D13 district, but the trend is so bad against us and Trump is so much disliked, it's going to play like D20 in 2026, so it's a cut too. So those are the districts we're not talking about, but just so we're on the record giving you all the information, that's what you need to know. All right, the last place we're going to go in this video is counties. We've looked at all the data even at the county level, and we want to tell you where regionally throughout the state we should be spending our time and resources because there are wins available. We got to start with Michael. Where's your start here? Where's there some wins?
Well, I'm going to have to say St. Clair County. It's been trending.
It's self. What is that? Like it's your own region. It's your own county. Yeah. But he's not wrong.
Yeah, so we've got it trending towards us. Could play more like a D+3 in 2026. So I think that provides some opportunity.
Yeah, the baseline's D5. So the fact that it could play more like a D3, Trump is not that big of a drag here. He plays like 3 points behind the baseline. But the trend here is +6 for us. The numbers have been going absolutely in our direction.
Yeah.
And it's just like Madison County. As much as Madison County is now deep red at this point, but both St. Clair and Madison have been moving in our direction. Madison, just so people are aware, it's moved in our direction 11 points over the timeline that we're looking at. That's huge. Yeah. So the Metro East, if we're looking for wins in Illinois, the Metro East are absolutely a place to look.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, Michael, even though it's a little self-serving, it's your home region.
You should have had Chris say that one.
The problem is you're not wrong. So the data is the data. All right, Chris, what do you got?
I got Will County. Look, Will County has always been like the black sheep of the collar counties to some extent because Republicans sometimes did well, and then the Democrats would sometimes do well, and then Republicans lost everything in 2018, so everyone's like, screw Will County, they're not winning anything there.
It almost seems like a little classist.
It is classist. It's very much so, Con.
Will County is very working class, and our Republican Party, until Trump changed it, was very much like the Mark Kirk, the Bob Dole, the country club, like the penny loafer, no socks wearing Republican Party. So they look down on Will County, but we've been saying for 3-4 years now that's where there are wins.
Yeah, How about that clerk?
Well, listen, Butler. Let me do the talking here, buddy. So 2022 happened, and then the Republicans picked up a seat, and then took over the county board, which is a fun story, and almost won a bunch of seats. And then the Will County Republicans adopted this very interesting strategy where they were going to not do anything except show up to the county clerk's office with 40 people the weekend before Election Day to go look at ballots get processed. And despite all of that, Trump overperformed what he did in 2020 by like 7 points, picks up the clerk spot, and almost won a bunch of seats that they had no business even getting close in Will County. If you're not looking at Will County and looking at what people at the clerk's office staring at ballots can do, imagine if there was actual investment. Imagine if there was actual campaign work in Will County. You put Will County at your county to watch in 2026 and beyond, Republicans could take over the whole kit and caboodle. But first, we got to run some campaigns. Got to start doing better out there. But that's why it's a start.
Part of this is the state level. We absolutely should start spending resources at the county level. Stop focusing on congressionals. There are wins to be had in Will County. You're 100% right. I mean, we made gains in Will County in 2024 despite having no money and barely running campaigns. Imagine if we could spend resources there. If we actually put time and effort into Will County, like there are some absolute wins. The trend is 3 points in our favor. Trump helps us by a point. In so many of these collar counties, he hurts us. He doesn't hurt us here. I mean, there's no reason why we shouldn't be picking up seats. Here's the only challenge, is that in off years, we play about 1 to 2 points worse in the county. So we might have missed a lot of opportunities in 2024. That said, we can't let 2026 go by. 1 to 2 points, you can overcome that. There are wins in Will County.
Definitely.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one, Chris. All right, next one here. Oh, I got to start. So I want to talk about the Rock Island area, and I'm going to go to a tiny county, Whiteside County. It's 50,000 people. It's not a lot of votes. I'm well aware. It's just like Jackson County at 50,000 people. But both of those counties show significant trends towards Republicans. Whiteside has an 11-point trend towards Republicans. Jackson, with Carbondale in it, it's a D2 county, but it's got a 9-point trend towards Republicans. Again, I get it. 50,000 votes are not going to win us a governor's race or a comptroller's race. I get it, but the trend is so much in our favor. And in Whiteside, Trump is actually a +3 in that county. He helps us in that county. And if we're not winning the Quad Cities, we're not winning IL-17. There are key races we need to win that require playing in that Quad Cities area. And so Whiteside is one of those regions. That's why I want to bring up Whiteside. Yes, Rock Island is where more votes are. There's 140,000 votes in Rock Island. And I have that as a bench. So I have Whiteside as a start, I've got Jackson as a start, I've got Rock Island as a bench. And in that Quad Cities area of Whiteside and Rock Island, I see opportunities for Republicans. And if we're gonna play up the ticket, we also gotta play down the ticket. And so I've got us playing in the Quad Cities. I think that's really important. All right, let's go to the next one. That's Michael. What do you got?
For my bench for this category, I had Peoria.
Yep.
Trump has kind of been a little bit of a drag there, -4, but that trend has held strong for the most part, pretty much stagnant. I think 2026 should be kind of a building year for Peoria County, build up that infrastructure, put some points on the board, and then come back in 2028 and give it your all.
Yeah, I mean, we've got these battleground areas like Peoria, Sangamon County. They're in the same boat. I mean, they're 175 to 200,000 residents. They have a significant impact statewide. Peoria is a D1 county. Trump doesn't help us there. He lost it by 4.6, so almost 5. But you're right, the trend is solid for us. Peoria County Republicans are holding the line, even though Trump isn't the biggest factor, biggest help to them. If they can hold the line again in 2026, that sets them up for some big gains. If you look at this data, there's big gains to be had when that Trump impact kind of lessens. I could see us getting some really big gains in Peoria. And Sangamon County is pretty similar. I mean, it's a little more Republican than Peoria is. It's more like R8. But the trend has been against us there. Trump's been a drag, kind of -3 points for each of those. Same deal. Hold the line in 26, pick up in 28 and 30. So yeah, I think you're right on those, Michael. Chris, what's your bench?
My bench is DeKalb County, kind of like a similar concept here with holding the line. It's kind of like a split even county. Trump barely loses it, and this is a county where I think we could win a presidential election in the future. Definitely need statewide candidates to be winning DeKalb County if they want any chance, but definitely not a cut. Some resources still need to be sent in DeKalb County. But we're holding the line up over there, and I think that should continue.
Yeah, it's kind of that exurbs region. we've got DeKalb, we've got Kendall, we've got LaSalle. They're all, so DeKalb and Kendall are benches. We've got LaSalle as a start. All because, again, as you said, those areas, there's a little bit of a Trump drag, a little bit of a Republican gain. There's opportunities absolutely in those counties. You're looking at 2 or 3 points we've got to overcome, but it's possible. And if we can win the exurbs, we can move that in and start winning the suburbs. So yeah, I'm with you on DeKalb and Kendall being benches. I've got LaSalle County as a start. What they've done there in that county, trending it in our direction over the years, LaSalle County Republicans have done an incredible job. And Trump doesn't kill us there. We can run up the score a little bit in that county with 100,000 residents. So I think that ex-urban region is absolutely a place we should be looking at. All right, my next one is a bench. It's Winnebago County. It's really more about the Rockford area. It's about the fact that if we're going to win some of these battleground areas, if we're going to get out of the super minority in the House and Senate, if we're going to take aisle 17, it's only going to happen if we improve in that Rockford area. And I see some decent numbers worth looking at. I mean, the Winnebago County Republicans have mostly held strong, even though Trump's been a bit of a drag. He's a 5-point drag in that county. And yet Republicans have kept the baseline even over the last decade or so. If they can hold the line again in 26, I really see gains in the future for Winnebago County. And then Boone County actually has been gaining. The Republicans have gained almost 5% over the years, even though Trump has been a 5-point drag. And so I see that Rockford area showing so much potential for us. It's not a start. I understand there are challenges, especially during during the Trump era. But if we're not winning in that Rockford working class area, we're not winning in Illinois, which is why I'm kind of shocked, because Chris had Boone County as a cut. And if we're not winning the Rockford area, we're not winning working class voters, which Chris claims to care about. We're not winning Illinois.
Top priority. That was my thing about Boone County.
So Chris just doesn't care about working class
I
families?
do, but like you've been this entire episode, Collin. This entire episode, you've been talking about priorities and resources and all those.
So you don't think running up the score a bit in Boone County to help us win some of these targeted races isn't a priority? Oh my God. Can you do math?
Can you do math? This entire episode.
No.
Can't do math, Collin. Didn't do well with math in school. That's why you pay me and Abe to do all the data for you.
Yeah, apparently. All right, well, if we're going to win working class households, that means winning the Winnebago, Boone County, that Rockford region. I want us to focus on it a bit. That's why it's one of my benches. All right, Michael, we've got some cuts now. What do you got?
Yeah, I had McLean County as a cut, mostly because Trump's impact in this county is significant and not in a positive way.
It's the highest. I mean, it's the worst of any county. He's a 9-point drag in McLean County. It's obviously because of that college-age students, the younger voters, but the data is the data. I mean, a 9-point drag, you're really not gonna come back from that. And the county itself, I'm seeing a 6-point trend over the years against us. McLean County, at least for now, even though it is, by some of the numbers, a little bit of a Republican county, it does not look good for us. I mean, again, if you live there, fight. I'm with you. But if we're trying to figure out throughout the state where to put our resources, the trend in McLean County is not good. That Bloomington Normal area, maybe Dan Brady can save us, I don't know. But for now, the numbers do not look very good. All right, Chris, go make yourself some enemies. Who's your cut?
My cut for counties is DuPage County. Look, we talked about class earlier. And ever since I got involved in Republican Party politics, every cycle, I have to hear about, you see what this race is going on in DuPage County. We got this going on. Greg Hart, great guy. But, Greg Hart, they're raising a lot of money. They're doing this, they're doing that. We got, it's a Republican county. The people are just moving in. It's turning everything bad. And then year after year, I have seen loss after loss. Okay? At this point, respecting the fact that long-term, DuPage County cannot be a cut. It just can't be. Right now, you have to look at where you're doing well in this state. And frankly, it's not DuPage County. The trend that DuPage County is on is that it's going to turn into another Lake County. Okay? And Lake County, it's a sad story. You got well-meaning people up there who are on the wrong side of trends. Okay? And in DuPage County, I just continuously see people who just can't get out of their own way, and they keep telling me how Republican or purple the county is.
Well, let me give the numbers for our audience that you're looking at. I mean, in 2016, it was just D3, then it was D4, then it was D8, then it was D12. Trump lost it by 13. We've got it optimistically as a D8, but in an off year, it's going to play worse than D8. It's not good.
Yeah, and the sad thing is that there are still county-wide Republican officials in DuPage County. Yeah. There are. Unfortunately, the state party and the big donors, they can't be looking at that anymore. They just really, if you're a donor, I don't know why you're watching this podcast, but if you're a donor, okay,
do we have some of those?
You know what? Dick Uline, my man, you watching? All right, give me a ring, buddy. Anyway, you're a donor and you want to invest in county-wide government for the Republican Party. Give Michael Butler here a call, man. Give Michael, before you call up DuPage County, give Michael Butler here a call. I guarantee you, his money will be better spent. Call up call Christina Clausen and the Will County Republicans. They
call McHenry County, where we're losing ground and we've got to stem the tide and stop the burn. Yeah.
The DuPage County obsession stems from, at one time, it was the center of Republican politics, not just in the state, but even in the entire country. This is a place where Republican presidents went to fundraise at one point. And now they can't win township races where Trump won the township.
And let's be real. We're not going to win Illinois without DuPage. Right. So we're not saying permanently you cut this county. There's 900,000+ people in the county. If we don't do better in DuPage, we could just give up in Illinois. But the data says in 2026, the county's going 9 points against us in the trend. Trump's a 5-point drag. It plays worse in off years. We don't deny this is an extremely important county. But the data tells us it ain't going to look pretty in 2026.
They got a new chairman in DuPage, Kevin Coyne. He's a great guy. Maybe he turns it around. Maybe when we do this video again, and again, if I'm still working here and Butler hasn't won a congressional seat, maybe we're talking about how we're moving DuPage County back up to bench, or hell, even start.
Yeah. But I mean, it's emblematic of those upper income, higher educated counties. Lake and DuPage are right in that wheelhouse. I mean, Lake is even worse. It was D7, then D10, then D12, then D21. Trump lost it by 20.5. Like, Lake's even worse based on what you're talking about. Both of those counties are right there in that cut category of, in the era of Trump, it ain't going to happen. Post-Trump, absolutely, we can make up a lot of this ground, and we have to. But until that time, unfortunately, the money's going to be better spent elsewhere. All right, let's go to our next county here. We've got, let me pull up my list. Oh, it's me. I get to go next. I've got Champaign County. So part of me, it's a cut. Part of me says, of course, if we're going to keep Brandon Schweizer in the House, we got to do better in Champaign County, and that's true. But the trend is bad for us. Trump's drag in that county is the second worst of any contested county. He's -8 for us there. Here's the only good news is that it does perform slightly better in off years, and that's the only good news I've got out of Champaign County. If you look at this trend line, it goes from D10 to D21, D16, D18. Trump lost it by 24 in the last election.
Welcome to a college town.
I mean, that's the problem. And so, like, we have to fight there. Locals have to fight in Champaign County because we must keep Brandon Schweizer in the House. But as counties go, it's definitely not a place we're going to find wins in 2026. All right, let's go to our last one here. Michael, what do you got?
I had Kane County as a cut. It's trending against us. Just hasn't looked good in recent years.
This is one of those color counties that's like right on the edge. Yeah. Like, Kane could maybe be a bench, maybe be a cut. I put McHenry County kind of in that same category where we should be doing better. I mean, Kane's a D6 county, let's be real, but the trend's been going against us. I mean, it's a 6-point trend against us in the timeline we're looking at. Trump's a 3-point drag. We perform worse in off years. I'd like to fight you on this. I wanted to fight you on this, but I kind of can't. Kane just doesn't look great in 2026, and Republicans have really struggled there in recent years. McHenry is kind of in that boat, where it's a Republican county, unlike Kane. It's R8, but the trend has not been great. There's a 5-point trend in McHenry County against us. I'll just share some of those numbers. It was R13 not that long ago, then R8, than R9, but then only R4. Trump only won it by 5. The trend here is not awesome. It's a 5-point trend against us. Trump's a 3-point drag. You can do all the Trump rallies you want in McHenry County. He's actually a little bit of a drag in the county. Until you recognize that McHenry County is becoming more suburban and less exurban, you're going to keep losing ground in that county. Kane and McHenry, we got to figure out what we're doing, because if we can't figure it out in Kane and McHenry, we're not going to figure it out anywhere else. Like, the collars are lost to us if we can't figure it out in Kane and McHenry County. All right, so we just went through a bunch. Lane, our producer, will put an image of this up on screen here at this point so you can see it in all of its glory. That's our cuts, that's our benches, that's our starts. As we look to 2026, we have limited resources. Democrats have more money, more time, more paid walkers, more union support, more everything that they can put at doorsteps to beat us. So we've got to be smarter if we're going to win. So this is based on the data where we're saying we should be spending our time, our resources, and our money to get some wins in 2026. You disagree? Awesome. Send us an email, contact us on social media. On next week's SFR, we're going to have people on to debate us and tell us where we're wrong, where we're right. So let us know. Do you think we're right on these? Where do you think we're wrong? Next week, we'll have a big debate. We'll see who was right and who was wrong. Spoiler alert, I think Michael was right. I think I was right. I think Chris is way off base.
And guess who's going to come out on top here after all of this?
Let's find out. Send us your feedback. That's the end of our special episode. Thanks for being with us. We'll catch you next week on the Smoke-Filled Room. And on that one, I'll actually have some smoke.